The night Daniel Carter's life changed forever began with a broken-down Honda and a storm that refused to quit. Most people think workplace romances start with stolen glances and coffee runs. They're wrong. Sometimes they start with a single father who's forgotten how to say yes, a team lead who's tired of being untouchable, and a decision that takes 30 seconds but echoes for months. This is the story of how kindness became scandal, how silence almost destroyed what honesty built, and how one man finally stopped running from the life he deserved. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. You won't believe where this goes. The rain hit Portland like it had a personal grudge. Daniel Carter stood in the parking garage of Velocity Tech Solutions, watching water cascade off the concrete levels above, creating a wall of sound that drowned out everything else. His keys were already in his hand, his mind already 3 steps ahead. Pick up Emma from daycare, heat up the leftover chicken pasta, maybe squeeze in an hour of code review after she fell asleep. The routine was a rhythm he'd perfected over 4 years of single parenthood, a carefully choreographed dance that left no room for improvisation. Which is exactly why he should have walked away when he saw Lauren Hayes standing next to her car, phone pressed to her ear, rain soaking through her blazer. No, I understand. Tuesday at the earliest. Right. Thanks. She lowered the phone slowly, staring at it like it had personally betrayed her. Daniel had worked under Lauren for 18 months. In that time, he'd learned several things about her. She drank her coffee black. She coded in 3 languages fluently. She had a laugh that showed up maybe twice a month. And she never ever asked for help. The woman who'd restructured their entire development pipeline in 6 weeks, who'd gone toe-to-toe with the CTO over architecture decisions, and won, was now standing in the rain looking completely defeated. He should have kept walking. Car trouble? The words were out before his better judgment could stop them. Lauren turned, and for just a second, he saw something unguarded in her expression. Embarrassment, frustration, maybe relief. Then her professional mask slid back into place. Transmission. The mechanic can't get to it until next week. She gestured vaguely at the silver Honda Civic that had seen better years. Perfect timing, right? Where do you live? Northwest, Morrison Street area? She was already shaking her head. I'll just call a rideshare. The surge pricing in this weather will be, I'm heading that direction. A lie. Emma's daycare was in the opposite direction, but it was only a 15-minute detour. 20 in this traffic. He could make it work. Come on, you'll be waiting an hour for a ride in this storm. He watched her calculate the offer, weighing professional distance against practical necessity. The rain hammered harder, as if trying to make the decision for her. You're sure? She asked. Positive. Let's go before we both drown. They ran for his car, a practical Subaru Outback that smelled faintly of apple juice and crayons. Daniel swept Emma's car seat debris into the back, a stuffed elephant, 3 picture books, half a pack of goldfish crackers. Lauren climbed in without comment, but he saw her register it all, the evidence of the life he lived outside these office walls. The first 5 minutes passed in silence, except for the windshield wipers' rhythmic beating and the GPS's calm directions. Daniel focused on the road, on the taillights blurring through the downpour, on anything except the fact that Lauren Hayes was sitting in his passenger seat, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle, expensive, completely unlike the chaos of his daily life. Thank you for this. Her voice cut through the white noise of the storm. I know it's out of your way. It's fine. Really? You're a terrible liar, Daniel. The daycare pickup is at 5:30, isn't it? He glanced over, surprised. How did you leave at exactly 5:15 every day, like clockwork. There was no judgment in her tone, just observation. Emma, right? Your daughter? Yeah, she's 4, almost 5. He didn't usually talk about Emma at work, not because he was hiding her, but because single fathers in tech walked a weird line. Too much personal life and you're not committed enough to the job. Too little and you're cold, detached. He'd learned to keep his world separate. The elephants are her favorite? Lauren gestured to the stuffed animal in the back. This week. Last week it was dinosaurs, before that astronauts. He couldn't help smiling. She's scientifically curious, drives the daycare teachers crazy with questions. Sounds like someone else I know. Lauren's voice carried a hint of amusement. You should hear yourself during code reviews. But why would we architect it that way? What's the edge case? Did we consider alternative approaches? That's different. That's work. Is it? She turned to look at him fully now, and Daniel felt the weight of her attention. You approach problems the same way, methodically, thoroughly, like you're trying to understand the whole system before you make a move. The GPS announced a turn. Daniel took it, buying himself time to respond, because she was right. And that observation felt too personal, too close to the truth of how he lived his entire life now, carefully, defensively, always thinking 3 steps ahead to avoid disaster. I have to be thorough, he said finally. There's no room for mistakes when you're the only parent in the equation. The words hung in the air between them, heavier than he'd intended. He never talked about Emma's mother. Hell, he barely thought about her anymore. The woman who'd decided motherhood wasn't what she'd signed up for, who'd left when Emma was 6 months old and never looked back. That pain had calcified into something else over the years. Fuel, determination, a fierce protective instinct that shaped every decision he made. Sorry, Lauren said quietly. That must be hard. It is what it is. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Emma's happy, healthy. That's what matters. Still, doing it alone, I'm not alone. I have Emma. He softened his tone, realizing how sharp that had sounded. Sorry, I just mean, she's enough, more than enough. They lapsed into silence again, but it felt different now. Less awkward, more contemplative. The rain showed no signs of stopping. If anything, it was getting worse. The streets were starting to flood, water pooling at intersections faster than the drains could handle. Take a left up here, Lauren said. Morrison's 3 blocks up. Daniel followed her directions into a neighborhood of older homes, the kind Portland was famous for, craftsman-style houses with deep porches and mature trees. Lauren's house was a small bungalow, painted pale blue with white trim, wedged between 2 larger homes. A single light glowed in the front window. This is me. She didn't move to get out. Daniel, thank you, really. You didn't have to do this. It's fine. Anyone would have. No, they wouldn't have. She was looking at him with that same unguarded expression from the parking garage, and Daniel felt something shift in his chest. You're one of the good ones, I hope you know that. Before he could respond, lightning cracked across the sky, close enough that the thunder followed almost immediately. The streetlights flickered once, twice, then died. The houses went dark one by one like dominoes falling. Power's out, Lauren said unnecessarily. Daniel checked his phone. 3 bars, but the data was crawling. He pulled up the local news. Looks like the whole Northwest grid is down. They're saying 2 to 3 hours minimum for restoration. Perfect. Lauren laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just perfect. You have candles? Flashlight? Somewhere, probably. She finally reached for the door handle. I'll figure it out. Thanks again for... Wait. Daniel heard himself say it, heard the word leave his mouth before his brain authorized it. Do you have food? If the power's out, your fridge... I'll be fine, Daniel. Go get your daughter. But he was already checking his phone, pulling up the daycare's contact. Mrs. Patterson answered on the second ring, her voice warm and patient as always. Daniel, I was about to call you. The power situation... I know, I'm running late. Is Emma okay? She's perfect, playing blocks with the Harrison twins. Don't worry about the time. We've got backup generators and we're prepared to stay as long as we need to. Some parents might not make it through this traffic for hours. I can be there in 30 minutes, 40 max. Honey, have you looked at the roads? They're closing bridges. You'd be safer waiting it out somewhere and coming when it's clear. Emma's fine here, I promise. We'll camp out. Make it an adventure. You know how she loves that. Daniel did know. Emma would probably think an impromptu sleepover at daycare was the most exciting thing that had happened all week. But the guilt still gnawed at him, the constant nagging feeling that he should be there, should always be there, that any deviation from the plan was a failure. You're sure? Positive. I'll text you updates every hour. Stay safe, Daniel. He ended the call and sat there, engine idling, rain hammering the roof. Lauren hadn't moved either. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. She's okay? Lauren asked. Yeah, they want me to wait out the storm. Bridge closures. That was probably smart. Driving in this, lightning struck again, close enough that they both flinched. The house next to Lauren's lost a branch with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. It crashed onto the sidewalk, missing Daniel's car by maybe 10 feet. Jesus, Daniel breathed. You need to get off the road. Lauren's voice had shifted into her team lead mode, decisive and clear. Come inside. Wait until it passes. I can't just... Yes, you can. You just got clearance from the daycare. The bridges are closing. Daniel, you're a great father, but you're not helping Emma by driving into a tree. She was already opening her door. Come on, I promise my house won't bite. He should have said no. Should have thanked her, waited 5 minutes for the worst to pass, driven home to his empty apartment. That was the safe play, the smart play, the one that kept his life in its careful, controlled lanes. Instead, Daniel turned off the engine and followed Lauren Hayes into her house. The interior was dark except for the ambient gray light filtering through the windows. Lauren moved through it with practiced ease, disappearing into what Daniel assumed was the kitchen. He heard drawers opening, the scratch of a match, and then warm light bloomed as she returned with 2 candles. Not much, but it's something. She set them on the coffee table, and in their flickering glow, Daniel got his first real look at Lauren's personal space. It was unexpected. He'd unconsciously assumed her home would match her office persona, minimalist, efficient, everything in its place. Instead, he found himself in a room that felt lived in, comfortable. Bookshelves crammed with paperbacks and hardcovers, their spines creased from reading. A blanket thrown over the back of a worn leather couch. Plants on every available surface, some thriving, some struggling, all clearly tended with optimistic determination. I know, Lauren said, catching his expression. It's a mess. It's not. It's... Daniel searched for the right word. It's real. She laughed, that rare, genuine laugh he'd only heard a handful of times. Diplomatic. I appreciate that. She shrugged out of her wet blazer, hanging it over a chair. Make yourself comfortable. I'm going to change into something dry. There's towels in the bathroom if you want to dry off. She disappeared down a hallway, and Daniel was left alone with the candles and the sound of rain against the windows. He should have felt awkward, out of place. Instead, he felt strangely calm. When was the last time he'd been in someone else's home like this? Not for a play date with Emma, not for some obligation, but just as himself. He couldn't remember. He took her up on the towel offer, finding the bathroom and drying his hair, his shirt. His reflection in the candlelit mirror looked unfamiliar. A man who existed outside of daddy duty and code reviews. Someone he'd almost forgotten. When he returned to the living room, Lauren was back, wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual professional bun. She looked younger somehow, more approachable. She'd also produced a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. I figured we're both off the clock, she said, pouring. Unless you prefer coffee, I have a French press and the stove is gas, so wine's good. Daniel accepted the glass, settling onto the couch at a respectful distance. Thanks. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping wine, listening to the storm. It should have been awkward. It wasn't. Can I ask you something? Lauren's voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Sure. Do you ever resent it? The responsibility? Daniel considered the question, rolling his wine glass between his palms. Sometimes, he admitted. Not Emma. Never Emma. But the weight of it, yeah. The constant pressure to not screw up, to be enough for both parents. The way dating became this impossible equation. Who has time? Who wants to sign up for instant family? Who's worth disrupting Emma's life for? He stopped, suddenly aware he was saying things he'd never said out loud. Sorry, that's probably more honesty than you wanted. No. Lauren's eyes were bright in the candlelight. It's refreshing. Everyone at work acts like they have it all figured out. Like life is just this perfectly managed project plan. And yours isn't? She laughed, sharp and self-deprecating. God, no. I'm 34, single, living in a house I can barely afford because I refuse to have a roommate, and my most meaningful relationship is with my houseplants. She gestured to a struggling fern. And I'm clearly killing them. That one just needs more indirect light and less water. See? You even know about plants. Lauren shook her head. Is there anything you're not good at? Asking for help, setting boundaries, letting myself want things that aren't on the approved list. The words surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise her. They looked at each other across the cushion of space between them, and Daniel felt the air change, thicken with something unspoken. "What's on the approved list?" Lauren asked softly. "Emma's happiness, financial stability, career advancement, being the reliable guy." He met her eyes. "Safe things." "And what's not on the list?" "You," Daniel thought. "This. Whatever's happening right now." But he couldn't say it, shouldn't say it. So instead he said, "Complications." "Right, complications." Lauren took a long sip of wine. "Like your team lead stranded in a blackout, drinking wine on her couch with her subordinate." "Is that what we're doing?" "I don't know what we're doing, Daniel. Do you?" The honest answer was no. He had no idea what was happening, only that it felt like standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Like the moment before Emma learned to walk, when she'd let go of the coffee table and stood there, wobbling, deciding whether to fall back into safety or lunge forward into the unknown. "I should probably eat something," Lauren said, breaking the moment. "I haven't had dinner. You?" "Not yet. I'm a terrible cook, but I can manage pasta, basic but edible." She was already standing, taking her wine glass with her. "Come on, keep me company." The kitchen was small, barely room for 2 people, but they made it work. Lauren boiled water on the gas stove while Daniel found vegetables in her fridge that hadn't gone bad yet. Bell peppers, an onion, mushrooms. They worked without discussing it, falling into an easy rhythm. She'd dice, he'd sauté. She'd taste, he'd adjust seasoning. "You lied about the cooking thing," Daniel said, watching her expertly mince garlic. "You're good at this." "I'm good at following instructions. There's a difference." But she smiled, pleased. "My grandmother used to say cooking is just chemistry you can eat." Smart woman. She was. Taught me everything worth knowing. Lauren's voice softened. "She'd have liked you. She always said to trust people who fix things without being asked." "Is that what I do?" "You fixed Jamie's code last week when you could have just flagged it in review. You stayed late to help Marcus debug that API issue, even though it wasn't your sprint. You drive team leads home in storms." She looked up at him, and they were close enough in the small kitchen that he could count the gold flecks in her brown eyes. "Yeah, Daniel, that's what you do. Maybe I just don't like leaving things broken. Or maybe you're one of the good ones." She repeated what she'd said in the car, but this time it landed differently, heavier with meaning. Dinner was ready, nothing fancy, just pasta with vegetables and a quick sauce, but they ate it at her small kitchen table by candlelight like it was something special. The conversation flowed easier now, lubricated by wine and the strange intimacy of the storm. They talked about everything and nothing. Favorite books, worst jobs, the terrible office coffee, Portland's rain. "I moved here from Arizona," Lauren said. "Everyone thought I was crazy trading sunshine for this." She gestured at the rain-streaked windows. "But I love it. The rain makes everything feel temporary, like you can reinvent yourself every time the clouds clear." "And have you? Reinvented yourself?" "I'm trying." She traced the rim of her wine glass. "The woman I was 3 years ago wouldn't have recognized me now. Career-focused, yes, but also closed off, afraid of anything that didn't fit the plan." "What changed?" "I turned 33 and realized the plan wasn't making me happy. It was making me successful, sure, respected, but not happy." She met his eyes. "So I'm trying to be braver, to say yes to things that scare me, to stop treating life like a risk management exercise." Daniel felt those words like a physical touch, because wasn't that exactly what he'd been doing? Managing risk, minimizing variables, keeping everything controlled and safe? And where had it gotten him? A good father? Yes. A solid employee? Absolutely. But a happy man? He wasn't sure he remembered what that felt like. "I'm not brave," he heard himself say. "I'm terrified all the time. That I'm screwing up Emma, that I'm not enough, that if I let my guard down for 1 second, everything will fall apart." "Daniel," Lauren reached across the table, her hand covering his. "You're raising a curious, happy child on your own while maintaining a demanding career. That's not cowardice. That's courage in action every single day." Her hand was warm on his. He should pull away, maintain professional distance, keep that wall firmly in place. Instead, he turned his palm up, lacing his fingers through hers. "This is a bad idea," he said quietly. "Probably. You're my team lead." "I know. Emma has to come first." "I wouldn't expect anything else." "So why does this feel like the first good decision I've made in years?" Lauren's smile was slow, devastating. "Because maybe it is." They stayed like that, hands joined across the table, as the candles burned lower and the storm raged outside. Neither of them moved to break contact. Neither of them wanted to be the first to acknowledge what was happening, as if speaking it aloud would shatter whatever spell the darkness had woven. Finally, Lauren spoke. "It's getting late." "Yeah." "The storm isn't stopping." "No." "You could stay until it clears." She said it carefully, like she was trying not to spook a wild animal. "The couch is comfortable." And here it was, the moment of choice, the fork in the road. Daniel could already map both paths, the safe one that led back to his apartment, his routine, his carefully controlled life, and the other one, the one that terrified him, that led into unknown territory with this woman who'd somehow become essential in the span of a single evening. The old Daniel, the one who'd built his life on caution and control, knew which path to take, but maybe that wasn't who he wanted to be anymore. "I'll stay," he said. Then, before he could stop himself, "But I'm not sleeping on the couch." The words hung in the air between them, bold, honest, unmistakable in their meaning. Lauren's eyes widened slightly, surprise giving way to something else, something warm and wanting, and maybe a little scared. "No?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "No." "Then wherever you want me to be." Daniel stood, still holding her hand, drawing her up with him. "But I'm done pretending this is just about the storm. I'm done being careful. If you want me to leave, I'll go right now. But if you want me to stay, really stay, then say it, because I need to hear you say it." In the candlelight, Lauren looked young and powerful all at once, a woman on the edge of her own decision. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "Stay, Daniel. Stay with me." And just like that, the line was crossed. The morning arrived with cruel brightness, sunlight streaming through Lauren's bedroom window like an interrogation lamp. Daniel woke to the sound of birds and the disorienting awareness that he was in a bed that wasn't his, in a house that smelled like lavender and coffee instead of Emma's strawberry shampoo and yesterday's macaroni. Lauren was already awake beside him, propped on one elbow, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Her hair was a mess, her face bare of makeup, and she'd never looked more beautiful. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey." Daniel's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. "What time is it?" "Just past 6. The power came back around 4. I heard the fridge kick on." They lay there in the gray morning light, the weight of what they'd done settling over them like a second blanket. It hadn't been reckless or wild, nothing like the desperate encounters Daniel remembered from his 20s. Instead, it had been careful and intense. Two people who'd spent too long being careful, finally allowing themselves to want something, to want each other. "I should go," Daniel said, not moving. "Emma?" "I know." Lauren's hand found his under the covers, squeezed once. "I know." But neither of them moved, because leaving meant facing what came next, and in this moment, they could pretend the world outside this room didn't exist, that there were no office politics, no professional boundaries, no complications waiting to shred whatever fragile thing had formed between them. Daniel's phone shattered the illusion, buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Mrs. Patterson's name lit up the screen. "Emma's ready for pickup whenever you are," the daycare director said cheerfully. "She had a grand time. Stayed up way too late telling the other kids ghost stories, but she's happy as a clam. Says it was better than camping." "I'll be there in 30 minutes, Daniel promised, already sitting up. "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson, really." "Any time, honey. We love that girl." He ended the call and turned to find Lauren pulling on a robe, her expression carefully neutral. The intimacy of moments before had evaporated, replaced by something more guarded. You need coffee before you go? She asked, tying the robe's belt with precise movements. Lauren, it's fine, Daniel. You have to pick up your daughter, I get it. But her voice was tight, controlled, the same tone she used in meetings when someone questioned her technical decisions. Hey. He caught her hand as she moved past the bed. Look at me. She did, reluctantly, and he saw it there. The fear underneath the control. The same fear he felt churning in his gut. I don't regret this, he said firmly. Do you? No, but that doesn't mean it wasn't complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. Is it worth having? The question came out small, vulnerable. Or was this just a moment, a storm that passed? Daniel stood, still in his boxers, and framed her face with his hands. I don't know what this is yet, but I know I want to find out. If you do. We work together, Daniel. I'm your team lead. HR has policies about... I know. We'll figure it out. And Emma comes first, always. You know that. He kissed her forehead, gentle and deliberate. But that doesn't mean there's no room for anything else. I've been telling myself that lie for 4 years, and I'm tired of it. Lauren leaned into him, just for a moment, allowing herself the comfort of his arms. Then she pulled back, rebuilding her composure like armor. Okay, she said, we'll figure it out. But right now, you need to go get your daughter. And I need to process the fact that I just slept with my direct report. Technically, I'm a senior developer and you're a team lead. Different reporting structure. Daniel. But she was almost smiling. Go, before I overthink this into oblivion. He dressed quickly, finding his clothes scattered across her bedroom floor, evidence of the path they'd taken from kitchen to hallway to bed, shedding inhibitions along with their shirts. In the kitchen, Lauren pressed a travel mug of coffee into his hands, and they stood there by her front door like awkward teenagers after a first date. I'll see you Monday? She asked. Yeah, Monday. He hesitated, then kissed her once more, brief and sweet. Thank you for last night, all of it. Even the terrible pasta? Especially the terrible pasta. This time her smile was real, reaching her eyes. Daniel carried it with him all the way to his car, through the drive to the daycare, even as his mind started cataloging all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. Emma barreled into his arms the moment he walked through the daycare door, a 4-year-old missile of energy and enthusiasm. Daddy, we had a sleepover, we told stories, and Mrs. Patterson made us pancakes, and I didn't even cry. She pulled back to look at him seriously. I was very brave. You were incredibly brave, Daniel agreed, hoisting her onto his hip, even though she was getting too big for it. I'm so proud of you. Where were you? Mrs. Patterson said the bridges were closed and you were safe somewhere. I was at a friend's house, waiting for the storm to pass. What friend? Emma's curiosity was relentless, as always. Someone from work. Her car broke down and the storm was really bad, so I made sure she got home safe. A girl? Emma's eyes lit up with that peculiar interest children have in their parents' lives. Like a girlfriend? Like a friend who is a girl, Daniel corrected, even as his chest tightened. Because what was Lauren exactly? A friend seemed too small a word for what had happened, but girlfriend felt presumptuous, too fast, too much. Oh! Emma sounded disappointed. Then, with the devastating honesty of 4-year-olds, Mia's mommy has a boyfriend now. They go on dates and everything. Mia says her mommy is happy. Daniel's heart clenched. They'd had this conversation before, in various forms. Emma asking why she didn't have a mommy like the other kids. Daniel explaining in age-appropriate terms that some families look different, that love came in all shapes, that they had each other, and that was enough. But maybe Emma was starting to realize it wasn't enough. That she wanted what she saw other kids have, a complete set, a mother and a father, the fairy tale family. Would you like it if Daddy went on dates? He asked carefully, carrying her to the car. Emma considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. Would you still have time for me? Always. You're my #1 priority, Emma Bear. Nothing changes that. Then okay, she nodded decisively. You should go on dates. Mrs. Patterson says everybody needs somebody to talk to who isn't 4. Daniel laughed despite himself. Mrs. Patterson is very wise. The weekend passed in the usual rhythm of single parenthood. Playground visits, grocery shopping, an elaborate fort built in the living room, Emma's swimming lesson, meal prep for the week ahead. Daniel went through the motions, but his mind kept drifting back to Lauren's house, to candlelight and wine and the feeling of being seen as more than just Emma's dad or the reliable developer in the corner cubicle. He texted Lauren once on Saturday, "How's the fern doing?" Her response came 3 hours later. "Moved it to indirect light like you suggested. Jury's still out on whether I've committed planticide." Sunday evening, as he was putting Emma to bed, his phone buzzed with another message. Are we really doing this? Walking into the office Monday and pretending nothing changed? Daniel waited until Emma was asleep, then called her. "Hi," Lauren answered, and he could hear the nervousness in her voice. "We don't have to pretend nothing changed," Daniel said. "We just have to be professional about how we handle what did change." "That's not an answer, Daniel. That's corporate speak." "Fine. Here's the truth. I have no idea how to navigate this. I've been out of the dating game for so long, I don't even know if there are new rules. Add in the work complication, and I'm completely lost." He paused, gathering courage. "But I know I want to try. With you. If you're willing to figure it out together." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Daniel's stomach dropped. Then Lauren exhaled slowly. "My last relationship ended because I prioritized work over everything else," she said. "I stayed late when I should have gone home. I took calls during dinner. I basically married my job and wondered why he left." Her voice wavered slightly. "I don't want to be that person anymore, but I don't know how not to be her." "Maybe we learn together," Daniel offered. "You teach me how to make room for someone else in my life. I'll teach you how to leave work at work sometimes." "Is that even possible in our field?" "Probably not, but we can try." Lauren laughed, soft and genuine. "God, you're persistent." "Only about things that matter." "And I matter?" "Yeah, Lauren, you matter." Another pause, but this one felt different. Warmer. "Okay," she said. "We'll try. But we do this smart, Daniel. We tell HR. We make sure there's no conflict of interest. We keep work and personal separate until we know this is something real." "Agreed. I'll set up a meeting with HR first thing Monday." "We'll set up the meeting, together." Her tone brooked no argument. "This isn't just your problem to solve." Daniel smiled in the darkness of his living room. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't ma'am me. I'm only 3 years older than you. 4, actually. Your birthday was last month." "You remembered my birthday?" "You mentioned it in a stand-up, said you were another year closer to joining AARP." "I was joking." "I know, but I still remembered." Daniel heard Emma stir in her room, the rustle of blankets. "I should go. Early morning with the munchkin." "Daniel?" Lauren's voice went soft. "Thank you for not letting me talk myself out of this. Thank you for being worth the complication." Monday morning arrived with the particular dread of knowing everything was about to change. Daniel dropped Emma at daycare earlier than usual, giving himself time to stop for decent coffee. Not the office sludge, but the good stuff from the place on 3rd that charged too much but actually understood espresso. He bought 2 lattes, Lauren's order memorized from 18 months of Monday morning stand-ups, and headed to the office with his heart doing uncomfortable things in his chest. Lauren was already there, of course. She was always first in, last out, the kind of dedication that had gotten her promoted twice in 3 years. She looked up when Daniel knocked on her open office door, and for just a second he saw something warm flash across her face before professional distance slammed back into place. "Good morning," she said evenly. "Morning. Peace offering." He set the latte on her desk. "Oat milk, 1 sugar, extra hot." "You didn't have to." She caught herself, glancing at the open door, the bullpen of developers just starting to filter in. "Thank you. That's very thoughtful." The formality was painful but necessary. They couldn't pick up where Friday night had left off. Not here, not with 30 sets of eyes watching their every interaction. "Do you have time this morning?" Daniel asked. "I need to discuss something HR related." "Of course. Let me check my calendar." She made a show of opening her laptop, scrolling through appointments. "I have 30 minutes at 10. Will that work?" "Perfect. I'll I'll book a conference room. It was all very professional, very appropriate. It felt completely wrong. Daniel worked at his desk for the next 2 hours trying to focus on the API documentation that needed updating, but his mind kept wandering. How would HR handle this? Would they require one of them to transfer teams? Would there be disciplinary action for not disclosing sooner, even though sooner was literally just Friday night? And what if this thing between them didn't work out? What if they were risking their careers for something that would burn out in a month? At 9:58, he headed to conference room C, the small one tucked in the back corner that people used for difficult conversations. Lauren arrived exactly at 10, closing the door behind her with a quiet click. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Lauren crossed the room in 3 quick steps and kissed him, urgent and brief. "Sorry," she said, pulling back. "I needed to do that once before we made everything complicated and official." Daniel's hands had found her waist without conscious thought. "We could not tell HR. Keep this quiet for a while." "You know we can't do that." But she didn't move away. "It's against policy. If someone found out, we'd both be in trouble." "You could lose your job, Daniel." "Emma, I know." He released her reluctantly, putting professional distance between them again. "You're right, we do this properly." They called HR from the conference room phone, putting it on speaker. Melissa Chang, the HR director, answered with her usual brisk efficiency. "Daniel, Lauren, what can I do for you?" "We need to disclose a relationship," Lauren said, and Daniel admired how steady her voice was. "Personal relationship. We wanted to report it before it became a conflict of interest issue." "I see." Melissa's tone shifted, became more careful. "How long has this relationship been active?" "This weekend," Daniel said. "Friday night, technically, during the storm." "And prior to Friday?" "Completely professional," Lauren assured her. "Nothing inappropriate." "Okay. I appreciate you coming forward promptly. However, this does present some challenges given your reporting structure." Computer keys clicked on the other end of the line. "Lauren, Daniel reports to you indirectly through the development team hierarchy. That creates a potential conflict of interest for performance reviews, project assignments, promotion decisions." "We understand," Daniel said. "What are our options?" "Typically, we'd need to restructure the reporting line. Either Daniel moves to a different team or Lauren does. Alternatively, we could assign Daniel a different team lead for review purposes while he remains on the same project team." Daniel's stomach sank. Moving teams meant leaving the work he'd spent 2 years building, the relationships, the institutional knowledge. But Lauren's situation was worse. She'd built this team from scratch, had fought for every process improvement and technical decision. "I'll transfer," he said. "Marketing team has an opening for a senior developer. I can—" "No!" Lauren's voice was sharp. "You're in the middle of the API redesign. Moving you now would set us back months. I'll talk to Priya about shifting to the infrastructure team. They've been wanting someone with my background anyway." "Lauren, that's a lateral move at best. You'd be giving up your team for something that matters to me." She met his eyes across the conference room table. "This matters to me, Daniel." Melissa cleared her throat delicately. "I'll need to discuss this with my team and senior leadership. In the meantime, I need you both to maintain strict professional boundaries at work. No preferential treatment, no private meetings without a third party present, no discussion of the relationship in the office." "Understood," they said in unison. "I'll have a decision by end of week. Thank you for your honesty." Melissa paused. "And congratulations. It's nice when these situations are handled maturely." The call ended. Lauren slumped in her chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "That went better than I expected," she said. "You're seriously considering leaving your team? If it means we can do this without constantly looking over our shoulders?" "Yes." She straightened, some of her usual determination returning. "I'm good at what I do, Daniel. I can build another team, but finding someone who makes me want to be brave, that's harder to replace." Daniel wanted to cross the room, pull her into his arms, kiss her until that worried line between her eyebrows disappeared. Instead, he stayed in his chair, maintaining the professional distance Melissa had mandated. "We should get back," he said reluctantly. "People will notice if we're both gone too long." "Right, professional boundaries, son." Lauren stood, smoothing her skirt. "I'll go first." "You wait 5 minutes." "Lauren." Yeah? Thank you for thinking this is worth it. Her smile was small but genuine. Ask me again in a week when the whole office is gossiping about us. She wasn't wrong to worry. By Tuesday afternoon, the whispers had started. Daniel first noticed it in the break room, where conversations would pause when he entered, resume in hushed tones once he'd poured his coffee and left. Then Jamie from QA made a pointed comment during stand-up about people spending quality time together during the blackout, complete with air quotes and knowing smirk. By Wednesday, the Slack channels were buzzing. Daniel didn't see the messages himself. He wasn't part of those private groups, but Marcus pulled him aside after lunch, concern written across his face. Hey man, just a heads up. People are talking. About? You and Lauren. Someone saw her car still in the garage Friday night, saw you give her a ride. Then you both were suspiciously absent during the blackout. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Look, I don't care what you do on your own time, but you should know it's making the rounds. Daniel's jaw tightened. We've already disclosed to HR. Everything's being handled appropriately. I'm sure it is. But you know how office politics work. People see a team lead and her direct report, and they assume the worst. I don't report directly to Lauren. The structure doesn't matter to the gossip mill. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Just watch your back, okay? And maybe keep things extra professional for a while. But keeping things professional became increasingly difficult as the week wore on, especially when the gossip took on uglier tones. Thursday morning, Daniel arrived to find Lauren in a heated discussion with Brad from the infrastructure team. Brad was old school, the kind of developer who thought diversity initiatives were political, and women in tech had to work twice as hard to earn half the respect. I'm just saying, Brad was saying, loud enough that half the office could hear. It's interesting that Carter's suddenly on the fast track for senior architect when he's been a mid-level developer for 2 years. Makes you wonder what kind of mentorship he's getting. Lauren's voice was ice. Daniel Carter is on track for promotion because his technical skills are exceptional and his contributions to the API redesign are invaluable. If you have concerns about the promotion process, take them to HR. Otherwise, this conversation is over. She walked away before Brad could respond, but the damage was done. The implication hung in the air, poisonous and clear. Daniel was sleeping his way to advancement. He found Lauren in her office 20 minutes later, door closed, head in her hands. Don't knock, she said without looking up. The blinds are open. People can see we're talking. I don't care what people see. Daniel closed the door anyway, lowering the blinds with deliberate movements. That was out of line. That was office politics, and it's going to get worse. She finally looked up, and he saw the stress etched in the lines around her eyes. Melissa called me this morning. Leadership wants to move you to the marketing team. Clean break, no appearance of impropriety. When? End of sprint, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 14 days to wrap up 2 years of work, to document everything he knew, to hand over his projects to someone else. It felt like being erased. What did you say? I said I'd think about it. But Daniel... She stood, crossing to the window, her back to him. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is too complicated. We work together, we're in the same building every day, and now people are questioning your competence and my judgment. Is it worth it? The question hit him like cold water. You tell me. Is it? I don't know anymore. Her voice cracked slightly. I don't know if what we have is strong enough to survive this. We barely know each other outside of one night and coffee orders. Daniel moved to stand beside her, close enough that he could see their reflections in the window glass. 2 people standing together, but carefully not touching. You're right, he said quietly. We don't know each other that well yet. I don't know your favorite movie, or what you wanted to be when you were a kid, or what makes you laugh so hard you cry. But I know you drink your coffee black because you think adding milk is wasting time. I know you bite your thumbnail when you're thinking through a complex problem. I know you stay late every Tuesday to mentor the junior developers, even though it's not in your job description. I know you're brave enough to build a career in a field that constantly questions whether you belong. And I know that when you look at me, I feel like more than just Emma's dad or the guy who fixes code. I feel like myself. Lauren turned to face him, eyes bright with unshed tears. And what if feeling like yourself isn't enough? What if we're risking everything for something that burns out in a month? Then we'll have tried. and that's more than I've done in 4 years. Daniel took her hands. Professional distance be damned. I'm scared too, Lauren. Terrified. But I'm more scared of playing it safe and wondering what if for the rest of my life. They're going to make this so hard for us. I know. People are going to question every decision we make. I know. Your daughter has to meet me eventually. What if she hates me? Emma doesn't hate anyone, except broccoli. Daniel managed to smile. And even then, she tolerates it if I put cheese on it. Lauren laughed through her tears. That's your bar? Better than broccoli? It's a start. She leaned her forehead against his chest, and Daniel wrapped his arms around her, holding her close despite the open blinds and the 30 pairs of eyes potentially watching. Okay, she whispered. We try, but we do it my way. Smart, strategic, by the book. Whatever you need. I need you to take the transfer to marketing. Clean break. No ammunition for Brad or anyone else to use against us. Daniel's chest tightened, but he nodded. Okay. And I need you to be patient while I figure out how to be someone's girlfriend and still be good at my job. I can do patient. And I need... She pulled back, looking up at him with devastating honesty. I need you to promise that if this doesn't work, we can still be professionals. That Emma won't lose stability because her dad took a chance on someone who wasn't ready. Lauren? Promise me, Daniel. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away the tears that had finally spilled over. I promise. But you have to promise me something too. What? Promise you'll give this a real chance. Not just the careful, risk-managed version. The actual messy, scary version where we might fail, but we might also build something incredible. She searched his eyes, and whatever she found there must have been enough. I promise. They kissed then, slow and deep, a seal on promises made. Outside the office, beyond the glass walls and curious stares, the world continued its relentless spin. But in that moment, Daniel felt like everything had finally stopped tilting sideways. When they finally pulled apart, Lauren's phone was buzzing insistently on her desk. She glanced at it and sighed. Melissa wants to schedule a follow-up meeting. Together or separate? Both. Apparently this has escalated to the CTO level. She straightened her blouse, rebuilt her professional armor. Get ready for the scrutiny, Daniel. It's about to get much worse before it gets better. She was right. By Friday, the entire office knew. And the whispers had turned into open speculation about favoritism, inappropriate relationships, and whether the company's fraternization policy was strong enough. But as Daniel packed up his desk that evening, preparing for his final 2 weeks on the development team, he realized something. For the first time in 4 years, he wasn't just surviving. He was choosing risk over safety, choosing possibility over control, choosing Lauren. And that choice, terrifying as it was, felt like finally learning to breathe again. The meeting with the CTO happened on a gray Monday morning that matched Daniel's mood perfectly. He and Lauren sat on opposite sides of the conference table, maintaining the careful distance that had become their default whenever company leadership was involved. Across from them sat Richard Chen, the CTO, Melissa from HR, and unexpectedly, Brad from infrastructure, whose presence made Daniel's stomach clench with foreboding. Thank you for coming, Richard began, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. I'll get straight to the point. We've received multiple complaints about favoritism and inappropriate conduct between you two. Brad here has documented concerns about Daniel's recent performance evaluations and project assignments. Brad slid a folder across the table, looking entirely too pleased with himself. I've been tracking Carter's advancement over the past 18 months. Interesting pattern emerges when you map it against Hayes' tenure as team lead. Promotions, high visibility projects, salary increases, all coinciding with Daniel's exceptional work, Lauren cut in, her voice sharp as broken glass. Every evaluation I've submitted has been based on documented performance metrics. Every assignment was determined by skill set and project needs. If you're implying otherwise, I'd like to see your evidence. The evidence is the timeline itself, Brad countered. A developer who is middling at best suddenly becomes indispensable the moment a certain team lead takes an interest in him. Daniel felt heat rising in his face. Middling. I led the migration to microservices architecture. I rebuilt the authentication system from the ground up. I've mentored 6 junior developers and contributed to every major release for 2 years. Under Hayes' supervision, that's the point. Gentlemen, Richard interrupted, raising one hand. Let's keep this professional. Brad, your concerns are noted, but correlation isn't causation. Lauren, I need to ask you directly. Has your personal relationship with Daniel influenced any professional decisions you've made regarding him? Lauren met the CTO's gaze without flinching. No. Every decision I've made about Daniel's career has been based solely on merit. Our personal relationship didn't exist until 10 days ago. Before that, he was simply the best developer on my team. And you expect us to believe it just spontaneously developed? No prior attraction, no favoritism building over time? Brad's smirk was infuriating. What I expect, Lauren said coldly, is for you to focus on actual policy violations instead of manufacturing scandals. Daniel and I disclosed our relationship to HR immediately. We've followed every protocol. If you have proof of actual misconduct, present it. Otherwise, this feels like harassment. The room went silent. Melissa shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Richard steepled his fingers, studying them both with the expression of someone solving a complex problem. Here's what's going to happen, the CTO said finally. Daniel, your transfer to the marketing team is effective immediately, not end of sprint, today. Lauren, you'll recuse yourself from any decisions regarding Daniel's former projects or team members who worked with him. Melissa will conduct a full review of all performance evaluations and compensation decisions made in the past 18 months. Richard, that's excessive, Lauren protested. You're punishing us for being honest. I'm protecting the company from liability and protecting both of you from accusations that could damage your careers permanently. Richard's tone softened slightly. I'm not unsympathetic. Office romances happen, but you're in a visible position, Lauren, and people are watching. Fair or not, your judgment will be questioned until we can prove there's nothing to question. And what about Brad? Daniel asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. He gets to level baseless accusations with no consequences? Brad raised legitimate concerns through proper channels. That's not a fireable offense. Richard stood, signaling the meeting's end. I suggest you both focus on your work and let the review process run its course. If everything is as above board as you claim, you'll be vindicated. They filed out of the conference room in tense silence. Brad lingered, catching Daniel's arm as Lauren and the others moved ahead. Nothing personal, Carter, he said quietly. But someone needed to call this out. Women like Hayes use their positions to play favorites all the time. You just happen to be the beneficiary. Daniel jerked his arm free. You don't know anything about Lauren or how she leads her team. I know she's been here 3 years and already outranks people with twice her experience. I know she's got leadership wrapped around her finger. And I know she's smart enough to pick someone like you, competent enough to be useful, grateful enough to be loyal. Brad's smile was ugly. Enjoy the marketing team, Carter. Hope it was worth it. Daniel watched him walk away, fists clenched so tight his knuckles ached. The injustice of it burned, that Lauren's competence was being reframed as manipulation, that his own skills were being reduced to rewards for good behavior in her bed. But more than anger, he felt something deeper and more corrosive. Doubt. Because what if Brad was right? Not about Lauren using him, but about the appearance of impropriety. What if their relationship, however genuine it felt, had irreparably compromised both their reputations? He found Lauren in her office 20 minutes later, blinds closed, door shut, sitting in the dark. They're taking everything, she said without preamble. Richard just sent me a list of projects I'm being removed from. The API redesign, the security audit, the new client onboarding system. Everything I've built for 2 years, gone, because I made the mistake of caring about someone. Daniel closed the door behind him. This is temporary. Once the review is done, I'll still be the woman who slept with her subordinate. That label doesn't wash off, Daniel. Not for women in tech. She looked up at him, and her eyes were dry but haunted. Do you know how hard I've worked to be taken seriously? How many times I've had to prove I earned my position? And now all of it, every accomplishment, every late night, every successful project, it's all tainted. Only if we let it be. Daniel sat down across from her, leaning forward. Lauren, you're brilliant. Everyone knows it. Brad's just one jealous asshole who... Brad is saying out loud what everyone's thinking, that I'm a woman who leveraged her position for personal gain, that I'm not as good as I think I am, that I needed a man to make me feel powerful. Her voice cracked. And maybe they're right. Maybe I did show you favoritism without realizing it. How do I know my feelings for you didn't influence my professional judgment? Because I know you. You'd rather eat glass than compromise your integrity. You've known me for 10 days, Daniel. Really known me. Before that, I was just your boss. She stood, pacing the small office like a caged animal. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we should have just stayed professional. At least then I'd still have my team. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. You don't mean that. Don't I? What do we actually have? A few conversations, one night together, and now both our careers are in jeopardy. Is that really worth it? Yes. Daniel stood too, blocking her path. Yes, it's worth it, because that one night showed me who I could be when I stopped hiding behind responsibility and fear. Because those conversations made me feel alive for the first time in years. Because you matter, Lauren. Not your team, not your projects, not your reputation, you. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one losing everything. I'm losing my team too. I'm starting over in a new department with people who think I'm an opportunist who slept his way into promotions. Daniel's voice rose despite himself. I'm facing the same whispers, the same doubt. But I'm still here, still fighting for this, because I believe what we have is real. Real doesn't pay my mortgage when I get fired for ethical violations. You're not going to get fired. The review will prove nothing except that I made questionable decisions that coincidentally benefited someone I was attracted to. Lauren sank back into her chair, defeated. God, I was so stupid. I should have transferred you the moment I realized I had feelings. I should have built a wall instead of inviting you into my house. Daniel knelt beside her chair, taking her hands even though she tried to pull away. Look at me. Please. She did, reluctantly, and he saw the fear beneath the anger, the same fear he carried every day as a single parent, the terror of losing everything you'd worked for because of one wrong move. I won't let you do this, he said firmly. I won't let you rewrite what happened into something ugly. We didn't do anything wrong, Lauren. We were honest, we followed the rules, and we refused to be ashamed of caring about each other. If the company can't handle that, if Brad and his cronies can't accept that a woman can be competent and human at the same time, that's their failing, not yours. Noble speech. Doesn't change reality. Then we change reality. We prove them wrong. Daniel stood, pulling her up with him. You built one team from nothing. You can build another. You earned respect once. You'll earn it again. But you don't do it by running away or pretending this thing between us doesn't exist. You're asking me to put my career on the line for a relationship that's barely 2 weeks old. I'm asking you to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. He cupped her face, forcing her to hold his gaze. I'm asking you to be as brave as you were that night in the storm when you invited me to stay. You took a chance then. Take one now. For a long moment, Lauren just stared at him, and Daniel could practically see the war happening behind her eyes. Fear versus hope, pragmatism versus possibility. Then slowly she leaned her forehead against his. I hate that you're right, she whispered. I hate that it's this hard. If we do this, if we really commit to fighting through this, I need you to understand something. She pulled back enough to look at him. I can't be the girlfriend who needs constant reassurance. I can't be weak right now, Daniel. I have to be stone cold professional, absolutely unshakable, or they'll tear me apart. Okay. Which means at work we're colleagues. Nothing more. No special treatment, no private conversations, no lingering looks across the bullpen. We give them nothing to use against us. I can do that. And outside work, I need time. Space to process this without feeling like I'm failing at being your girlfriend if I'm not okay every second. Her voice wavered. I need you to be patient with me while I figure out how to be both things at once, the professional and the person. Daniel kissed her forehead gently. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. You promise? I promise. But promises, Daniel would learn, were easier to make than keep. His first week on the marketing team was brutal. The work itself was fine. Website updates, email campaign optimization, nothing particularly challenging. But the culture was different. more casual, less technical. His new teammates were friendly enough, but there was an undercurrent of curiosity, of knowing glances when they thought he wasn't looking. Sarah from Content Marketing cornered him by the coffee machine on day 3. "So," she said with the aggressive friendliness of someone fishing for gossip, "how are you finding the transition from development?" "It's an adjustment, different pace, different priorities." "I bet. Must be hard leaving your old team." Her smile was sharp. "Especially leaving Lauren Hayes. I hear you two were close." Daniel's jaw tightened. "We worked well together, yes." "Is that what we're calling it?" Sarah laughed, but her eyes were cold. "Look, no judgment. If I could sleep my way into a promotion, I probably would too. The tech industry is brutal for everyone. That's not what happened." "Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night." She patted his arm in mock sympathy. "Just word of advice? People here don't care about your coding skills or your work ethic. They care about the drama. So if you want to survive in marketing, embrace it. Own the narrative instead of letting it own you." She walked away, leaving Daniel standing there with cold coffee and hot anger. But beneath the anger was something worse, the creeping realization that this was his life now. Not just for weeks, but potentially for years. The guy who dated his boss, the developer who got promoted for the wrong reasons. No matter how hard he worked or how much he proved himself, that label would follow him. That night after putting Emma to bed, he called Lauren. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding exhausted. "Hey, how was your day?" "Long. Yours?" "Awful. Someone in marketing made a crack about me sleeping my way to success." Lauren sighed. "I got pulled into another meeting with HR today. Apparently someone filed a formal complaint claiming I gave you confidential information about upcoming promotions. Which is ridiculous because the promotion cycle isn't for another 3 months and I don't even have access to that data, but they have to investigate anyway." "Who filed the complaint?" "They can't tell me. Anonymous submission." Her bitter laugh came through the phone. Coward didn't even have the guts to put their name on it. "This is getting out of control, Lauren." "I know." A pause, heavy with unspoken words. "Daniel, I've been thinking maybe we should cool things off for a while, just until the review is done and people move on to the next scandal." Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "Cool things off how?" "Just not see each other outside of work? Let the gossip die down. Show everyone this was never about using each other for professional gain. Or show everyone they were right to question us in the first place." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means if we back down now, we're admitting there was something wrong with what we did. We're letting Brad and Sarah and every other person who wants to tear us down win. I'm trying to protect both our careers. By hiding? By pretending we don't care about each other?" Daniel stood, pacing his living room. "That's not protection, Lauren. That's surrender. Easy for you to say. You're not the one they're investigating. You're not the one who gets to hear whispers about inappropriate conduct every time you walk into a room." Her voice rose, frustration bleeding through the careful control. "I'm drowning here, Daniel, and you're asking me to keep swimming like everything's fine. I'm asking you to hold on, to trust that we can get through this. And what if we can't? What if they find something in the review, some email I sent, some decision I made that looks bad in hindsight? What if I lose my job over this? Then we'll deal with it together." "Together." She laughed, sharp and humorless. "You have Emma to think about, Daniel, a child who depends on you for everything. You can't afford to tie yourself to someone whose career is imploding. It's not fair to her. Don't use my daughter as an excuse to push me away." "I'm not—" Lauren stopped, and he heard her take a shaky breath. "I'm scared, okay? I'm terrified that I've ruined both our lives for something that might not even last. We barely know each other, and already everything is falling apart." Daniel sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. "You want to know what scares me? The idea of giving up on something real because people who don't know us, who don't care about us, decided we're not allowed to be happy. That's what terrifies me, Lauren. Not the gossip, not the review, not even losing my job. Losing you because we were too afraid to fight." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of breathing on both ends of the line. "I need some space," Lauren said finally, her voice small. "Just a few days to think clearly without feeling like I'm letting you down every time I'm not okay." "And then what?" "And then we figure out what we're actually doing. If this is worth the cost, if we're strong enough to survive this. We are, Lauren. I know we are. I wish I had your certainty. Another pause. I have to go. Emma probably needs you. She's asleep. I need you. Daniel? Okay, take your space. But don't take too long because I'm not giving up on this. On us. She ended the call without responding, and Daniel sat in the dark of his living room, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life by pushing instead of letting go. The next few days crawled by with excruciating slowness. Daniel threw himself into work, staying late at the office even though there was no real reason to, anything to avoid going home to an empty apartment and a phone that refused to ring. Lauren became a ghost. He'd catch glimpses of her in meetings, in the hallway, always moving too fast to stop, always surrounded by other people. The few times their eyes met, she'd look away first, and each time felt like a small death. Marcus found him working late on Friday, the office mostly empty except for the cleaning crew. You know you don't have to prove anything to these people, right? Marcus said, dropping into the chair beside Daniel's desk. Just trying to stay busy. You're trying to outwork the gossip. Doesn't work. Trust me, I tried when I got divorced. Marcus leaned back, studying him. How are you really doing, man? Daniel considered lying, maintaining the professional facade. But he was so tired of pretending everything was fine when his whole world felt like it was crumbling. I think I'm losing her, he admitted quietly. I think the pressure's too much, and she's going to walk away. Hayes? Marcus whistled low. Damn, I thought you two were solid. We are. I don't know anymore. Daniel scrubbed his hands over his face. How do you fight for something when the person you're fighting for won't let you help carry the weight? You can't. That's the thing about relationships. Both people have to be willing to fight. If she's checking out, all the persistence in the world won't change that. So what? I just give up? No. You give her space to figure out what she wants, and you decide what you're willing to accept. Marcus stood, clapping him on the shoulder. But Daniel, make sure you're not fighting for the idea of her or for what you think you should want. Fight for the real thing, messy and complicated as it is. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for heartbreak. After Marcus left, Daniel sat at his desk staring at his dark monitor, turning those words over in his mind. Was he fighting for Lauren or for the version of himself that existed when he was with her, the man who felt alive and hopeful instead of just functional? And if he couldn't tell the difference, what did that say about his judgment? His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's daycare. Reminder about parent-teacher conferences next week. Right. Because in the midst of his imploding love life, he still had the most important job in the world, being Emma's father. She'd been quieter this week, watching him with those two perceptive 4-year-old eyes that saw more than he wanted them to. Are you sad, Daddy? She'd asked that morning over breakfast. Just tired, sweetheart. Is it because of the work lady, the one you gave a ride to? Daniel had frozen, cereal spoon halfway to his mouth. What makes you ask that? Emma shrugged with the devastating casualness of children. You smile when you talk about her. But you haven't talked about her in days. That's how I knew you were sad. Out of the mouths of babes. His 4-year-old had diagnosed his emotional state with more accuracy than he'd managed himself. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings, he'd said, defaulting to vague parent speak. That means you're sad, but don't want to say so. Emma had patted his hand seriously. It's okay to be sad, Daddy. Mrs. Patterson says feelings are like weather. They change. Now, sitting in the empty office, Daniel clung to that childish wisdom. Feelings are like weather. This storm would pass. The question was whether he and Lauren would still be standing when it did, or if they'd be swept away in the flood. His phone rang, shattering the silence. Lauren's name on the screen made his heart jump. Hey, he answered, trying to keep his voice neutral. Are you at the office? She sounded strange, tense, and almost breathless. Yeah, why? Stay there. I'm coming up. We need to talk. She ended the call before he could respond, and Daniel's stomach dropped. We need to talk. The universal precursor to bad news, to endings, to everything falling apart. He stood, paced to the window, watched the city lights blur through sudden moisture in his eyes. 10 minutes later, Lauren appeared in the doorway of the marketing bullpen, still still in her work clothes but looking disheveled, like she'd been running or crying or both. She spotted him and crossed the empty office with quick, determined strides. "I got the preliminary review results," she said without preamble. "HR just sent them over." Daniel's chest tightened. And they found nothing. No evidence of favoritism, no inappropriate conduct, no policy violations. Her voice was shaking. "Every promotion recommendation I made was supported by documented performance metrics. Every assignment was justified by project needs. Every evaluation matched or was more conservative than peer reviews from other team leads." That's good. That's great. "They're exonerating me, Daniel. Completely. Melissa said the investigation is closed, that I can return to my full responsibilities within 2 weeks." Tears were streaming down Lauren's face now, and her smile was tremulous. "I'm not losing my career. We didn't do anything wrong." Relief flooded through Daniel so powerfully his knees went weak. I told you they wouldn't find anything. I know you did." She moved closer, and he could see the war in her expression, joy and guilt and something else, something raw. "I should have believed you. I should have trusted that what we built was strong enough. Instead, Her voice broke. "I tried to push you away to save myself, and I almost lost the best thing that's happened to me in years." Daniel closed the distance between them, pulling her into his arms. She came willingly, burrowing into his chest like she was trying to disappear inside his embrace. "I'm so sorry," she whispered against his shirt. "I'm sorry I doubted us. I'm sorry I let the fear win. You're here now. That's what matters." She pulled back enough to look up at him, and the vulnerability in her eyes made his chest ache. "I don't deserve you. I don't deserve this second chance. Stop." Daniel framed her face with his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. "You deserve everything good, Lauren. You deserve to be happy, to be loved, to build something real without constantly looking over your shoulder. And I'm going to keep telling you that until you believe it. Even after I tried to give up on us? Especially after. Because I understand why you did it, and I love you anyway." The words fell out before he could stop them, landing in the space between them like a grenade. Lauren's eyes went wide, her breath catching. "You... what?" Daniel could have backtracked, could have claimed it was too soon or that he'd misspoken. Instead, he doubled down, committing fully to the truth. "I love you," he repeated, steady and sure. "I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, I know we're still figuring this out, but I love you, Lauren Hayes. Your brilliance and your vulnerability, your strength and your fear, all of it. And I'm not going anywhere." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling now, wide and genuine and beautiful. "You're completely insane," she said, laughing through her crying. "We've known each other for 3 weeks. 4, technically, and I was in love with you before I knew it, probably from the moment you trusted me enough to invite me into your home during that storm." Daniel Carter, you are the most impossibly stubborn, frustratingly optimistic, ridiculously genuine person I've ever met. She kissed him then, soft and sweet. "And I love you too. God help me, I love you too." They stood there in the empty office, holding each other as the city hummed below, and the future stretched out uncertain but full of possibility. The gossip wouldn't disappear overnight. Brad would still be an asshole. The scars from these weeks of scrutiny and doubt would take time to fade, but they were standing together, finally, choosing each other over fear. "Take me home," Lauren whispered against his lips. "Not my home, not yours, ours, eventually. But tonight, just take me somewhere we can be us without the world watching." Daniel took her hand, lacing their fingers together with deliberate intention. "Let's go." As they walked out of the office together, no longer hiding, no longer ashamed, Daniel felt something shift in his chest. The weight he'd carried for so long, the constant pressure to be perfect, to never fail, to protect Emma from every possible hurt, lightened just enough to let hope in. The storm had passed, they'd survived, and tomorrow they would start rebuilding what the gossip had tried to destroy, this time on a foundation of proven trust and hard-won truth. They ended up at a small restaurant in southeast Portland, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus that Daniel would have never found on his own. Lauren ordered for them both, something she did with the easy confidence of someone who knew what she wanted, who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. Daniel watched her across the table, still marveling at the simple fact that she was here, that they were here, that the worst hadn't destroyed them. "You're staring," Lauren said, not looking up from her wine. "I'm allowed to stare at my girlfriend." She smiled at the word, soft and private. "Is that what I am?" "Unless you want a different title, partner, significant other, that woman Daniel's hopelessly gone for." "Girlfriend works." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "Though fair warning, I'm probably terrible at it. My last relationship ended because I forgot our anniversary 3 years running. I'll send you calendar reminders." See? Already more functional than my last attempt at romance. But her smile faded slightly, replaced by something more serious. "Daniel, about what I said earlier, about loving you. I meant it, but I need you to understand what you're signing up for." "I'm listening." "I'm a workaholic. I'll get lost in code for hours and forget to eat. I'll take calls at weird hours because we have teams in 3 time zones. I'm messy. You saw my house. I kill plants. I once missed my best friend's wedding because I was debugging a critical system failure." She squeezed his hand tighter. "I'm trying to be better, to find balance, but it's not natural for me. The work is how I prove I belong, how I justify taking up oxygen in rooms full of men who think I slept my way there." "You don't have to justify anything to anyone. Intellectually, I know that, but knowing and believing are different things." She took a sip of wine, gathering her thoughts. "I want to be the kind of partner who shows up, who's present, who doesn't make you feel second to my career. But I'm going to fail at it sometimes, probably often, and I need to know you can handle that." Daniel considered her words carefully, understanding that this moment mattered, that she was offering him the truth of who she was, flaws and fears included, and trusting him not to flinch. "You want honesty?" he asked. "Always. I'm going to fail too. I'm going to cancel dates because Emma's sick or has a school play. I'm going to be distracted and tired and spread too thin between being a father and being your partner. I'll probably talk about Emma too much, bore you with stories about finger painting and playground politics. And sometimes I'll resent the time I can't give you because I'm drowning in single-parent responsibilities." He met her eyes steadily. "But I'll show up anyway. I'll make the effort even when I'm exhausted. Because that's what you do for people you love. You try, even when trying is hard. Emma will always come first for you. That's non-negotiable." "Yes, but that doesn't mean there's no room for you. It just means we build something that works for all 3 of us, not just 2. Daniel paused, then added quietly, "And eventually, I'd like you to meet her, when you're ready." Lauren's hand tightened on his. "I'm terrified of that." "Why?" "Because what if she hates me? What if I don't know how to talk to a 4-year-old? I don't have nieces or nephews, Daniel. My experience with children is basically 0, and she's the most important person in your world. If I screw that up, you won't." Daniel's voice was firm. "Emma's curious and kind, and she loves people who are genuine with her. Just be yourself, that's enough." The woman who forgets to eat and kills plants? That's who you want around your daughter? The woman who fights for what she believes in, who builds things that matter, who's brave enough to be vulnerable with me. Yeah, that's exactly who I want Emma to know." Lauren blinked rapidly, and Daniel realized she was fighting tears again. "You have entirely too much faith in me." Or exactly the right amount. He raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "No pressure, okay? Whenever you're ready. Could be next week. Could be next month. I'll follow your lead. Next week is too soon. Okay? But maybe in a few weeks, something casual, park or ice cream or something where if it's awkward, we can leave?" "Perfect. Emma loves the zoo. We could make a day of it. Penguins, elephants, overpriced hot dogs. Very low pressure." Lauren laughed despite her anxiety. "The zoo. Okay, I can do the zoo." Then more seriously, "What will you tell her about me? About us?" "The truth, age-appropriate version. That you're someone special to me, someone I care about, who I'd like her to meet. She already knows you exist. She asked about you the morning after the storm." "She did?" Lauren looked alarmed. "What did she say?" Asked if you were my girlfriend. When I said you were a friend who's a girl, she looked disappointed. Apparently some kid at daycare has a parent with a new boyfriend, and it's very exciting. Daniel smiled at the memory. She told me I should go on dates, said everyone needs somebody to talk to who isn't 4. Smart kid. She gets it from me, Daniel said with mock arrogance, then softened. She just wants me to be happy, Lauren, and you make me happy. That's all she needs to know for now. Their food arrived, interrupting the moment. They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Movies they'd seen, books they'd loved, the ridiculous office drama that didn't involve them for once. It felt normal, easy, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. By the time they finished dessert, the restaurant was nearly empty and Daniel's phone showed past 10. I should get home, he said reluctantly. Early morning with Emma tomorrow. She's got swimming lessons at 8, and if I'm late, Mrs. Patterson will give me the look. The look? Disappointed daycare director. It's worse than any boss I've ever had. Daniel signaled for the check. Come back to my place? Just for a bit. I want you to see where I live, where Emma and I have built our life. Lauren hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but just for a bit. We both have actual work tomorrow, and I refuse to be the reason you're sleep-deprived for parenting duties. Daniel's apartment was nothing like Lauren's house. Where hers was lived in chaos, his was organized to the point of sterility. Everything in its place, nothing extraneous. The home of someone who'd learned to function on efficiency rather than comfort. But Emma's presence was everywhere. Drawings on the fridge, toys in neat bins, a growth chart on the kitchen door frame, her little rain boots by the door next to his. It's very clean, Lauren observed, looking around. It's very controlled, Daniel corrected, suddenly seeing the space through her eyes. I spent the first year after Emma's mom left just trying to survive. Everything had a system, a place, a time. If I didn't have structure, I'd drown. He picked up one of Emma's drawings from the coffee table, a family portrait in crayon, him and Emma holding hands under a rainbow. I've loosened up since then, but old habits. Lauren took the drawing gently, studying it. She's talented. Look at the detail in the rainbow. She actually did the colors in order. She's very particular about accuracy. Spends 20 minutes arranging her stuffed animals every night because they each have a specific spot. Daniel smiled fondly. She's going to be an engineer or a scientist, maybe both. Like her dad. Better than her dad. Smarter, braver, less afraid of taking chances. He took the drawing back, returning it to its spot. I want her to have everything I was too scared to reach for, including watching her father actually live his life instead of just managing it. Lauren moved closer, sliding her arms around his waist. Is that what I am? You living your life? You're the first thing in 4 years that felt like choosing instead of surviving. Daniel kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. Thank you for giving me another chance, for not running when things got hard. I almost did run. But you didn't. That's what counts. They stood there in his living room, swaying slightly like dancers without music, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest. A rightness. A sense of pieces fitting together that he'd stopped believing was possible. The doubts were still there, lurking at the edges. The gossip would continue. People like Brad would keep whispering. But standing here with Lauren in his arms, in the home he'd built for his daughter, he felt certain of one thing: this was worth fighting for. Lauren left 20 minutes later, citing early meetings and the need for actual sleep. Daniel walked her to her car, kissed her goodnight like a teenager, watched her drive away with his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Then he went back inside, cleaned up the kitchen, and allowed himself to imagine a future where this wasn't new and terrifying, but comfortable and real. The next morning, Emma noticed immediately that something had shifted. You're smiley today, she announced over breakfast, studying him with those perceptive eyes. Did something good happen? Yeah, sweetheart. Something good happened. What? Daniel considered his words carefully. Remember I told you about my friend from work, the one whose car broke down? The work lady, Lauren. Right. Well, Lauren and I have decided we're going to spend more time together. She's going to be around more. Emma absorbed this with the seriousness of a judge reviewing evidence. Like Mia's mommy's boyfriend? Sort of like that, yeah. Okay. Emma returned to her cereal, apparently satisfied. Then, after a moment, is she nice? Very nice. Kind and smart and funny. Does she like elephants? I don't know. We'll have to ask her. If she doesn't like elephants, you probably shouldn't date her, Daddy. Elephants are very important. Daniel laughed, ruffling her hair. I'll keep that in mind. And she has to be nice to you. If she's mean, I'll tell her to leave. The fierce protectiveness in his 4-year-old's voice made Daniel's throat tight. Deal, but I think you'll like her, Em. She's pretty great. We'll see, Emma said sagely, sounding far older than her years. Mrs. Patterson says you can't know if you like someone until you meet them properly. Mrs. Patterson is very wise. Monday arrived with the weight of a new beginning. Daniel walked into the marketing team area with his head high, refusing to shrink from the curious stares. Lauren had texted him that morning, a simple good luck that carried the weight of everything they'd built over the past weeks. Sarah from content marketing approached his desk before he'd even logged in. So the rumors are true, she said without preamble. You and Hayes are actually together. Daniel met her eyes levelly. Yes, we are. We've disclosed everything to HR, followed all policies, and the investigation found no wrongdoing. If you have any other questions, I'd suggest directing them to Melissa. Sarah blinked, clearly not expecting the directness. I was just making assumptions, starting gossip. Daniel kept his voice even but firm. Here's the thing, Sarah. My relationship with Lauren is no one's business but ours and HR's. But since everyone seems so interested, let me be clear. I earned my position through work, not through who I'm dating. My performance reviews speak for themselves, and Lauren Hayes is one of the most ethical, talented leaders in this company. If you want to question that, be prepared to back it up with facts instead of innuendo. Jesus, Carter, I was just making conversation. No, you were fishing for drama. There isn't any. We're two adults in a relationship, handling it professionally and by the book. That's the whole story. He turned to his computer, effectively dismissing her. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. Sarah walked away, and Daniel caught a few approving nods from coworkers who'd overheard. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Standing up to the gossip instead of letting it fester, refusing to be ashamed of what he and Lauren had built. The real test came at the weekly all-hands meeting. Richard Chen stood at the front of the room, going through the usual updates. Project milestones, new hires, upcoming initiatives. Then he shifted gears, his expression becoming more serious. I want to address something that's been circulating, Richard said, and the room went quiet. There's been some discussion about professional conduct and conflicts of interest. I want to be clear about the company's position on workplace relationships. Daniel felt every eye in the room turn toward him and Lauren, who sat 3 rows apart, carefully not looking at each other. We don't prohibit relationships between employees, Richard continued. What we require is disclosure, transparency, and adherence to our ethics policies. When those requirements are met, as they have been in recent situations, there is no issue. He paused, letting that sink in. What we won't tolerate is harassment, gossip, or hostile work environments created by speculation about people's personal lives. If you have concerns about ethics violations, bring them to HR with evidence. If you're just spreading rumors, stop. We're professionals. Act like it. The message was clear, and the pointed looks Brad received from several team leads suggested Richard's words hadn't been generic. The CTO wrapped up quickly after that, and people filed out in subdued clusters. Daniel caught Lauren's eye across the room. She gave him a small, private smile that said more than words could. They'd survived. The company had their back, and anyone who wanted to keep making their relationship into a scandal would now have to contend with leadership shutting it down. In the hallway afterward, Marcus pulled Daniel aside. That was well played, he said, voice low. Getting ahead of it, making a statement without being defensive. Chen doesn't do that unless he's confident in the position. We didn't do anything wrong. Just took a while for everyone else to realize it. Still, Marcus clapped his shoulder. For what it's worth, I'm glad it worked out. You seem happier than I've seen you in the 2 years we've worked together. That counts for something. Thanks, man. Really. Just one question. Marcus grinned. When do we get to meet her properly? Not as the team lead from development, but as Daniel's terrifyingly accomplished girlfriend who I'm going to be intimidated by. Daniel laughed. Soon, probably. Once we figure out how to exist in public without everyone analyzing our every interaction. So never then. Got it. Pretty much. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Daniel and Lauren were scrupulously professional at work. No private meetings, no lingering conversations, nothing that could be misconstrued. But outside the office, they built something real. Dinners at restaurants where no one from Velocity Tech would see them. Long phone calls after Emma went to bed. Weekend mornings at Lauren's house, drinking coffee and reading the paper in comfortable silence. Lauren was making an effort with the balance she'd promised, leaving work at reasonable hours, taking calls less frequently. Daniel could see the struggle in it, the way she'd check her phone compulsively, the guilt that crossed her face when she chose dinner with him over late-night debugging sessions. But she was trying, and that mattered more than perfection. "I told my therapist about you," Lauren mentioned one evening, curled up on her couch with a glass of wine. "You have a therapist?" Daniel looked up from his book. Started seeing her after the whole review disaster. Figured if I was going to learn how to have healthy relationships, I should probably get professional help. She smiled wryly. "Turns out I have some attachment issues stemming from childhood perfectionism and parental expectations. Who knew?" "What did she say about me?" "That I should introduce you to the people in my life who matter. Stop keeping you compartmentalized like you're a secret I'm ashamed of." Lauren set down her wine, suddenly serious. "So I told my parents about you. Well, about us." Daniel's heart stuttered. "How did that go?" "About as well as expected. My mother immediately asked if you're Chinese, which you're not, so that's strike one. My father wanted to know what you do. And when I said software developer, he wanted to know why you're not a manager yet." She rolled her eyes. "They're very traditional. Success is measured in titles and salary, not happiness." "Do they know about Emma?" "I led with that, actually. Figured if they were going to have issues, better to get them all out at once." Lauren reached for his hand. "My mom said dating a single father was complicated. My dad said I should focus on my career instead of playing house with someone else's child." Daniel felt anger flash hot in his chest. "That's predictable and irrelevant." Lauren squeezed his hand firmly. "I told them you're important to me, that Emma is important to me, and they could either accept that or not have a relationship with me moving forward. My therapist was very proud." "You really said that?" "Word for word." Then I hung up before they could argue. She smiled, but there was pain underneath it. "We're not close, my parents and me. Haven't been since I chose tech over medical school, but I needed to draw that line, choose you actively instead of just defaulting to what's easy." Daniel pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I'm sorry they can't see how amazing you are. Their loss. And honestly," she looked up at him, "it felt good. Standing up for what I want instead of apologizing for not being who they expected. You make me braver, Daniel Carter." "You were always brave. You just needed permission to show it." "Maybe." She settled against his chest. "Speaking of brave, I think I'm ready to meet Emma if the offer's still open." Daniel's heart jumped. "Yeah? You're sure?" Terrified, but sure. "Let's do the zoo thing. Next Saturday if the weather's good?" "Next Saturday." Daniel kissed her slowly, deeply, putting everything he felt into it, gratitude and love and hope for this fragile, precious thing they were building. "Fair warning, though. Emma takes the zoo very seriously. There will be facts, so many facts about animals." "I can handle facts. I'm a developer, remember? Facts are my comfort zone." "These are enthusiastic 4-year-old facts, not always accurate, always delivered with absolute confidence." Lauren laughed. "Even better. I can't wait to hear her explain elephant social structures with the certainty of a tenured zoologist." "You're going to do great," Daniel assured her, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. Because this was it. The moment where his two worlds collided. The most important person in his life meeting the person who'd become essential in a different way. And if it went wrong, if Emma didn't like Lauren, or Lauren couldn't connect with Emma, he had no idea how to navigate that. But he'd learned something over these past weeks of fighting for this relationship. Sometimes the only way through fear was straight ahead. No hedging, no backup plans, just honest effort and trust that love was strong enough to carry the weight of complications. Saturday arrived bright and clear, the kind of perfect Portland spring day that felt like a reward for surviving months of rain. Daniel picked Lauren up at her house, finding her pacing her living room in jeans and a casual sweater, looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her before a product launch presentation. "I brought books," she announced, holding up a bag. "Age-appropriate books about animals. Is that weird?" I didn't want to show up empty-handed, but I don't know what 4-year-olds like, and the internet was no help. "Lauren." Daniel caught her hand, stilling her nervous movement. "Breathe. It's going to be fine. What if she hates me? She won't. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm boring? What if—" He kissed her, gentle and grounding. "You're brilliant and kind and genuine. That's all she needs. The rest will follow. You have entirely too much faith in me. Someone wise once told me that's exactly the right amount." He took her bag, slinging it over his shoulder. "Ready?" "No, but let's do it anyway." Emma was waiting on the front steps of Daniel's apartment building when they arrived, practically vibrating with excitement in her purple rain boots and elephant print t-shirt. She spotted Lauren through the car window, and her eyes went wide. "Is that her?" Emma whispered as Daniel opened her door. "That's her. Remember what we talked about? Best behavior, be yourself, and ask her about elephants." "I know, Daddy." Emma climbed out of the car seat, suddenly shy as Lauren approached. "Hi, Emma," Lauren said, kneeling down to eye level. "I'm Lauren. Your dad's told me a lot about you." Emma studied her with that serious, assessing look that made adults squirm. "You're pretty. Are those real glasses or pretend?" "Real. I need them to see properly." "Daddy has glasses too, just for reading though." Emma pointed at Lauren's sweater. "I like your sweater. It's blue. Blue is my second favorite color." "What's your first favorite?" "Purple. Like my boots." Emma stuck out one foot to demonstrate. "Do you like elephants?" Lauren shot Daniel a quick, amused glance before answering gravely, "I do like elephants. They're very intelligent. And they have good memories and live in matriarchies, which means the girls are in charge, and they can weigh up to 6 tons, which is really heavy." Emma delivered this in one breathless rush, then added, "Daddy said you might want to learn about them at the zoo." "I would love that. Think you could teach me?" Emma's face lit up. "I know lots of things. I have 3 elephant books, and I watched a documentary, and Mrs. Patterson says I'm very knowledgeable." "Mrs. Patterson sounds very wise." "She is. She's my teacher, and she makes good snacks." Emma reached for Lauren's hand with the casual trust of children who'd decided someone was acceptable. "Come on, the elephants get fed at 11, and we don't want to miss it." Just like that, the ice was broken. Daniel followed behind as Emma chattered nonstop, pulling Lauren toward the car with determined enthusiasm. He caught Lauren's eye over Emma's head and saw the relief there, the tentative joy of realizing she might actually be good at this. The zoo was crowded with weekend families, but Emma navigated it like a seasoned explorer, dragging them from exhibit to exhibit with unwavering purpose. She explained penguin wattles, tiger stripes, the difference between African and Asian elephants. Lauren listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Emma puff up with importance. "Most people don't know that elephants can communicate over long distances using infrasound," Emma explained seriously as they watched the elephants. "That means sounds that are too low for human ears, but other elephants can hear them miles away." "That's incredible," Lauren said. "How do scientists know about it if we can't hear it?" "Special equipment, like microphones, but different." Emma frowned, clearly reaching the edge of her knowledge. "I don't know exactly how. Maybe we should look it up." "Absolutely. We can research it together." Emma beamed, and Daniel's chest went tight with something he couldn't quite name. Watching his daughter and his girlfriend connect over elephants and scientific curiosity felt surreal and perfect and terrifying all at once. They broke for lunch at the zoo cafe, Emma wedged between them at a picnic table, systematically destroying a grilled cheese sandwich while explaining why giraffes have long necks. "Are you going to keep coming to the zoo with us?" Emma asked suddenly, looking at Lauren with those direct, unsettling eyes. "Would you like me to?" Lauren asked carefully. "Uh-huh. You're a good listener, and you didn't get mad when I corrected you about the tigers." Why would I get mad? You were right. Some grown-ups don't like being wrong. They get all pinchy-faced. Emma demonstrated with an exaggerated scowl that made both adults laugh. But you're nice. Are you Daddy's girlfriend for real now? Daniel froze, but Lauren handled it with remarkable grace. I am, she said simply. Is that okay with you? Emma considered this while chewing her sandwich. I think so. Daddy smiles more when he talks about you. And Mrs. Patterson says people should be with people who make them smile. She paused, then added with the devastating honesty of 4-year-olds, my mommy didn't make Daddy smile. She made him sad. And then she left. The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of complicated emotion across the table. Daniel reached for Emma's hand. Hey, Em, we talked about this, remember? Some families look different than others. I know. Emma squeezed his hand. It's okay, Daddy. I'm not sad about it. I just wanted Lauren to know that she's better, because you smile now. Lauren's eyes were suspiciously bright. Thank you, Emma. That's very kind of you to say. It's just true. Daddy always says we should tell the truth even when it's hard. Emma returned to her sandwich, the heavy moment passing with the easy resilience of childhood. Can we see the otters next? They're my third favorite animal. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of exhibits and ice cream and Emma's endless narration. By the time they headed back to the car, the sun was starting to set and Emma was flagging, her earlier energy depleted by hours of enthusiastic education. Did you have fun? Daniel asked, buckling her into her car seat. Uh-huh, Lauren's nice. Can she come over for dinner sometime? If she wants to. I want to, Lauren said from beside the car. Very much. Emma's eyes were already drooping. Good. We can make spaghetti. Daddy's is pretty good. Not restaurant good, but okay. High praise, Daniel murmured, making Lauren smile. By the time they reached Lauren's house, Emma was fully asleep in the back seat, snoring softly with her head tilted at an angle that would definitely give her a crick in her neck. Daniel walked Lauren to her door, reluctant to end the day. So, he said, verdict? She's amazing, Daniel. Smart and funny and so confident in herself. You should be incredibly proud. I am, but I meant your verdict on all this. Meeting Emma, seeing what my life actually looks like. Lauren took his hands, lacing their fingers together. I was terrified I'd mess it up, that I'd be awkward or say the wrong thing or prove I'm not cut out for this instant family situation. She smiled, soft and genuine. But Emma made it easy. She's just herself. No pretense, no games. Just this wonderful little person who knows what she likes and isn't afraid to share it. She liked you too, I could tell. Good, because I like her. A lot. Lauren reached up, cupping his face. I can see why she's your whole world, Daniel, and I want you to know I'm not trying to take your place or be her mother or anything that complicated. I just want to be someone good in both your lives. If you'll let me. Daniel kissed her, pouring 4 weeks of fear and hope and love into it. We'll let you, he said against her lips. Both of us. If you're brave enough to keep showing up. I'm learning to be brave. You're an excellent teacher. They stood on her doorstep as the evening light faded, holding each other with the comfortable ease of people who'd fought for the right to be exactly where they were. Emma slept peacefully in the car. The gossip at work had finally died to a background murmur. And for the first time since that rainy night when everything changed, Daniel felt like they'd made it through the worst. He was wrong, of course. There would be more challenges ahead, more moments of doubt and fear, and the complicated reality of blending lives. But standing there with Lauren in his arms and Emma safe in the car behind them, he felt ready for whatever came next. They'd chosen each other. They'd chosen honesty over hiding, courage over comfort. And that choice, renewed every day in small moments and big declarations, was strong enough to carry them forward into whatever future they were brave enough to build. Summer arrived in Portland with uncharacteristic persistence, the kind of extended sunshine that made locals nervous and tourists smug. Daniel had learned to navigate the delicate choreography of his new life, Emma's summer day camp schedule, Lauren's project deadlines, the careful balance of being a present father and an attentive partner. Most days it worked. Some days it felt like juggling chainsaws while riding a unicycle. Today was definitely a chainsaw day. "Daddy, you promised we'd go to the science museum this weekend," Emma said from the back seat, her voice carrying that particular edge of 4-year-old betrayal. "You promised." "I know, sweetheart, but something came up at work. Lauren's team is presenting to the board on Monday, and Lauren's always busy. You're always helping Lauren." Emma's lower lip trembled, and Daniel felt his chest constrict with familiar guilt. "You never have time for just me anymore." The accusation hit harder because it contained a kernel of truth. Since he and Lauren had officially moved past the cautious dating phase into something more serious, Daniel had found himself stretched thinner than ever. Lauren tried to be understanding about his parental responsibilities, but her job demanded long hours and weekend availability. Emma tried to be patient about sharing her father's attention, but she was 4. Patience wasn't exactly her strongest skill. "That's not fair, Em. We spent all last weekend together. We went to the park, remember? And the ice cream place?" "But you kept checking your phone. You weren't really there." Daniel pulled into the daycare parking lot, his hands tight on the steering wheel. She was right. He'd been physically present but mentally elsewhere, worried about Lauren's presentation prep, responding to work messages, never fully engaged. The same pattern he'd sworn he'd never fall into, the divided attention, the compromised presence. "You're right," he said quietly, turning to look at her in the rear-view mirror. "I'm sorry, Emma. I haven't been as present as I should be." "Does that mean we can go to the museum?" "Yes. This Saturday, just you and me. No phones, no distractions." "Deal?" Emma's face brightened immediately, the storm passing as quickly as it had formed. "Deal. Can we see the dinosaurs?" "We can see whatever you want." He walked her into daycare, hugging her extra tight before she ran off to join her friends. Mrs. Patterson caught his arm on the way out, her expression gentle but knowing. "Everything all right, Daniel?" "Just juggling too much, the usual." "That girlfriend of yours, Lauren, right? Emma mentions her quite a bit. Is that a problem?" Daniel felt defensive tension creep into his shoulders. "Not at all. Emma seems to like her very much. Talks about their zoo trips, the books Lauren brings her." Mrs. Patterson paused, choosing her words carefully. "But I've noticed Emma's been more clingy lately, testing boundaries, seeking reassurance. It's normal when a parent starts dating, but it's something to be aware of. I'm trying to balance everything, making sure Emma knows she comes first." "I know you are, and you're doing a wonderful job." Mrs. Patterson smiled warmly. "Just remember, Emma doesn't need perfection. She needs presence, quality over quantity, as they say." Daniel carried those words with him to the office, where he found Lauren already at her desk despite the early hour, surrounded by presentation printouts and empty coffee cups. She looked up when he knocked, her smile tired but genuine. "Hey, how's Emma?" "Feeling neglected because I canceled our museum trip for your presentation prep." Lauren's face fell. "Daniel, I told you that you didn't have to help with this. I know you need time with Emma." "I want to help. Your presentation is important. Not more important than your daughter." She stood, crossing to close her office door. "We talked about this. Emma comes first, always. If I need help, I can ask the team or push the timeline. I will not be the reason she feels like her father's choosing someone else over her." "You're not—" "I am, though. Not intentionally, but the effect is the same." Lauren leaned against her desk, arms crossed. "Daniel, I love what we're building together, but if it costs you your relationship with Emma, it's not worth it. Nothing is worth that." The conviction in her voice made something loosen in Daniel's chest. "You really mean that?" "Of course I mean it. Emma's an amazing kid and you're an incredible father. I won't be the person who damages that, even accidentally." She moved closer, taking his hands. "So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to that museum on Saturday. You're going to be fully present, phone off, work forgotten, just you and your daughter. And I'm going to finish this presentation myself like the highly competent professional I am." "Lauren, no arguments. This is non-negotiable." But her smile softened the firmness. "Besides, Emma and I have plans for next weekend. She wants to teach me how to make friendship bracelets, apparently. Something about summer camp crafts." Daniel blinked. "When did you plan this?" "Last Tuesday, when you were in that marketing meeting." She called me on your phone. Apparently she's mastered FaceTime. And we had a whole conversation about camp activities and her favorite colors. She's very decisive about colors, by the way. Purple is still number one, but green is making a strong showing. The image of his daughter independently calling his girlfriend to plan crafts made Daniel's heart do complicated things. She called you herself? Yep, very businesslike about it too. Hi Lauren, this is Emma Carter calling to schedule a play date. I almost died from the cuteness. Lauren's expression grew more serious. The point is, we're figuring this out, the three of us. But that only works if you don't sacrifice your relationship with her to maintain ours. Understood? Yes, ma'am? And stop calling me ma'am. I'm not that much older than you. 5 years, technically. She kissed him to shut him up, and for a moment the stress of juggling responsibilities faded into simple affection. When they pulled apart, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. I'm scared of screwing this up, he admitted quietly, of disappointing both of you by trying to be everything to everyone. Then stop trying to be everything. Just be present wherever you are. When you're with Emma, be dad. When you're with me, be you. The rest will work itself out. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's necessary. Lauren kissed him once more, brief and sweet. Now get out of my office so I can finish this presentation. And Daniel? Tell Emma I said hi, and that I'm very excited about friendship bracelets. Saturday at the Science Museum was everything Emma had hoped for, and more. Daniel kept his phone in the car, forcing himself to be fully present as Emma dragged him from exhibit to exhibit, her enthusiasm infectious and exhausting in equal measure. They built structures in the engineering section, explored the human body displays, spent an hour in the planetarium watching stars wheel overhead. This is the best day ever, Emma announced over lunch, her face smeared with ketchup from her burger. Even better than the zoo with Lauren. Even better? Daniel feigned offense. I'm wounded. I thought I was the fun parent. You're both fun in different ways. Lauren explains things really good, and you let me try stuff even when it might get messy. Emma took a massive bite of burger, chewing thoughtfully. I like that you're happy now, Daddy. You smile more. Yeah? What else do you notice? You sing in the car again. You used to do that when I was really little, but then you stopped. Now you do it again, especially after you talk to Lauren on the phone. She swung her legs under the table. And you laugh at her jokes even when they're not that funny. That means you really like her. When did you become such an expert on relationships? Mrs. Patterson says I'm very perceptive. That means I notice things. Emma wiped ketchup off her face with the back of her hand, ignoring the napkin Daniel offered. Are you going to marry Lauren? The question caught Daniel mid-sip of his coffee. He coughed, buying time to formulate an answer that was honest but age-appropriate. I don't know, sweetheart. We haven't talked about that yet. But you love her, right? You told me you loved her. I did, and I do. And she loves you. She told me when we were looking at the penguins. Emma said this casually, like it wasn't information that made Daniel's heart stop. So if you love each other, you should probably get married. That's how it works in all my books. Real life is a little more complicated than books, Em. Why? If you're happy and she's happy and I'm happy, what's complicated? The simple logic of a 4-year-old, cutting through all the adult anxieties and doubts. You're right, Daniel said, reaching across to wipe ketchup from her cheek properly. It shouldn't be complicated. Sometimes grown-ups just make things harder than they need to be. Then stop doing that. Emma spoke with the absolute authority of someone who'd never experienced true heartbreak or disappointment. Just be happy, Daddy. That's the most important thing. Later that night, after Emma was asleep and Daniel was cleaning up the kitchen, his phone rang. Lauren's face filled the screen and he answered with a smile. How'd the presentation go? Crushed it. The board approved full funding for the next phase, and Richard practically offered me a promotion on the spot. She sounded giddy with success and maybe a little drunk on relief. I'm officially leading the entire infrastructure modernization project. Team of 15, budget that doesn't make me want to cry, actual resources to do this right. Lauren, that's incredible. Congratulations. Thank you, and thank you for not being there today. What? I mean it. If you'd been there, I would have leaned on you, used you as a crutch instead of standing on my own expertise. But doing it myself, proving I could... Her voice caught slightly. It reminded me who I am when I'm not afraid. You gave me that gift by choosing Emma today. I didn't choose Emma over you. I chose to be present for both of you in the ways you each needed. Semantics. The point stands. A pause, then quieter. I miss you, though. Is that pathetic? We saw each other yesterday, and I already miss you. Not pathetic. I miss you, too. Daniel leaned against the counter, phone pressed to his ear. Emma asked me today if we're getting married. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Daniel wondered if the call had dropped. Then Lauren spoke, her voice carefully neutral. What did you tell her? That we haven't talked about it yet, which is true. We haven't. Do you want to? Talk about it, I mean. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. They'd been together for almost 4 months, not long in the grand scheme of relationships, but they'd packed more growth and challenge into those months than most couples experienced in years. They'd survived office gossip, HR investigations, the complicated dance of blending his established life with her presence. They'd proven they could weather storms together. Yeah, he said quietly. I think I do want to talk about it. Now? Or is this a conversation that needs to happen in person with wine and proper lighting? Despite the nervousness jangling through his system, Daniel smiled. Definitely in person. But soon. Okay, soon. He could hear the smile in her voice. For what it's worth, I've been thinking about it too. About what forever might look like with you and Emma. If that's something you'd even want. It is, very much. Good. That's really good. Lauren exhaled slowly. I should let you go. Early morning tomorrow with Emma's camp drop-off. Lauren? Yeah? I love you. More than I thought I could love anyone after Emma's mother left. You've made me believe in possibilities again. I love you too, Daniel Carter. You and your incredible daughter and this messy, beautiful life we're building. A beat, then sleep well. Dream about me. Always do. The conversation about forever happened 2 weeks later on a Wednesday evening that felt too ordinary for the magnitude of what they were discussing. Emma was at a sleepover with her friend Mia, giving Daniel and Lauren a rare night completely alone. They ordered Thai food, opened a bottle of wine, and ended up on Lauren's couch with their feet tangled together and the weight of unspoken futures pressing down on them. So, Lauren said, setting down her wine glass with deliberate care. Marriage. Marriage, Daniel echoed. Terrifying concept. Absolutely terrifying. They looked at each other and laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Okay, let's approach this logically, Lauren said, slipping into her problem-solving mode. What do we each want from a marriage? Not what society expects or what makes sense on paper, but what we actually need. Daniel considered the question seriously. I want a partner, someone who's in it with me, not just along for the ride, someone Emma can count on, who shows up even when it's hard, someone who challenges me to be better but loves me when I'm not. That's a pretty high bar. You've already cleared it multiple times. He squeezed her foot gently. Your turn. What do you need? I need someone who doesn't expect me to choose between my career and my relationship, who understands that my work matters, that building things and solving problems is part of who I am, not something I should apologize for. She met his eyes. I need someone who's secure enough in themselves that my success doesn't threaten them, who celebrates my wins instead of resenting them. Also already achieved. See how compatible we are? On paper, yes. But Daniel, marriage is more than compatibility. It's logistics and compromise and figuring out whose apartment we live in and how to merge finances and whether you're okay with my terrible habit of leaving coffee mugs everywhere. I've noticed the mugs. I've made peace with the mugs. And I'd have to be okay with the rigidity of your schedule, the way you plan everything down to the minute, the fact that spontaneity gives you hives. It doesn't give me hives. It gives me mild anxiety and a strong desire to make a contingency plan. Lauren smiled, but her eyes were serious. I'm scared of losing myself in this, of becoming Daniel's wife or Emma's stepmom instead of Lauren Hayes, infrastructure lead, badass developer, woman who fought her way to where she is. You think I'd let that happen? You think Emma would? Daniel sat up, taking her hands. Lauren, you're the woman who told off the CTO when he questioned your technical decisions, who rebuilt an entire team's morale after Brad tried to poison it, who taught my daughter that being smart and ambitious isn't something to hide. Marriage doesn't erase any of that. If anything, it gives you more people in your corner cheering you on. And what about you? What are you scared of? Daniel had to think about that, to dig past the surface fears to the real terror underneath. I'm scared of failing again. Emma's mother left because she couldn't handle the reality of parenthood, of me. I'm scared that one day you'll wake up and realize this life, the one with early morning camp drop-offs and parent-teacher conferences and a kid who dominates our schedule, isn't what you signed up for. That you'll resent the limitations, the constant compromises. Daniel. Lauren cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. I'm not her. I will never be her. When I say I love you, I mean all of you, including the parts that are completely devoted to Emma. That's not a limitation. That's one of the things I love most about you. You say that now. I said it 4 months ago. I'm saying it now, and I'll say it 4 years from now. Your capacity to love, to show up, to be present even when it's hard, that's not a flaw, Daniel. That's your superpower. She kissed him softly. So here's what I'm proposing. Not marriage, not yet, but a real commitment. Move in together. Not you moving into my place or me squeezing into your apartment, but finding somewhere that's ours. Big enough for Emma to have her own room, close enough to her school that we don't have to change her whole routine. Daniel felt his breath catch. You want to live together? I want to build a life together. Intentionally, deliberately. I want to wake up next to you and navigate the chaos of morning routines and argue about whose turn it is to do dishes. I want Emma to have stability, to know that I'm not going anywhere, that this isn't temporary. Lauren's voice was steady, certain. And then, when we've proven we can handle the day-to-day reality of merged lives, when Emma's comfortable and settled, when we're both absolutely certain, then we talk about marriage. How does that sound? It sounds perfect. It sounds terrifying and perfect, and exactly right. Yeah? Yeah. Daniel pulled her close, kissing her with 4 months of pent-up certainty. Let's do it. Let's find a home. Together. Finding a home turned out to be both harder and easier than expected. Harder because Portland's rental market was brutal, and their requirements were specific. Easier because once they found the right place, they both knew it immediately. It was a 2-bedroom bungalow in the Selwood neighborhood, with a small yard and a porch perfect for morning coffee. Emma's potential bedroom had built-in bookshelves and a window seat that overlooked a massive oak tree. The kitchen was big enough for 2 people to cook without constant collision. The living room had space for both Daniel's organized minimalism and Lauren's controlled chaos. The commute to Velocity Tech is a bit longer, Daniel said, standing in the empty living room and trying to envision their furniture here. But Emma's school is 10 minutes closer, and there's a park 2 blocks over. Lauren appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. We could make this work. We could make this home. They signed the lease that afternoon, giddy with the enormity of what they were doing. The hard part was telling Emma, who Daniel had been protecting from the full scope of their plans until everything was settled. He sat her down that evening, choosing his words carefully. You know how Lauren and I have been spending a lot of time together? Uh-huh. Emma was coloring at the kitchen table, not looking up from her intricate purple elephant. Well, we've been talking about maybe living together, all 3 of us, in a new house. Now Emma looked up, eyes wide. Like a real family. We're already a real family, sweetheart. Just a different configuration than some families. Daniel pulled out a chair, sitting down beside her. But yes, Lauren would live with us full time. She'd have her own room for work stuff. You'd have your own room, and we'd all share the common spaces. Would she be my mom? The question landed like a punch to Daniel's sternum. He'd known it was coming eventually, but that didn't make it easier to answer. That's complicated, Em. Lauren loves you very much and wants to be part of your life, but she's not trying to replace your mother or pretend to be something she's not. Good, because I don't really need a mom. I have you and Mrs. Patterson and Grandma when she visits. Emma returned to her coloring. But I like Lauren. She can be like my friend who's a grown-up. Is that okay? Daniel's throat tightened with emotion. That's more than okay. That's perfect. Will I have to change schools? Nope, same school, actually closer to the new house. And can I bring all my elephant books? Every single one. Okay then. Emma nodded decisively. I think we should do it. When do we move? Next month, if that's okay with you. Can I pick the color for my new room? Within reason, yes. Purple. Obviously. She looked at him with the patient expression of someone explaining something very simple to someone very slow. When's Lauren coming over? We should tell her about the purple room. She'll want to know. She'll be here for dinner in about an hour. Good. We're making spaghetti, right? I want to help. Emma abandoned her coloring, already moving toward the kitchen with purpose. Daniel watched his daughter bustle around their small kitchen, pulling out ingredients with the confidence of a seasoned chef, and marveled at her resilience. 4 years old and already teaching him lessons about acceptance and moving forward. The move happened on a scorching August Saturday, with help from Marcus and a couple of other co-workers who'd become genuine friends once the scandal died down. Brad had eventually transferred to another company, unable to stomach working in an environment where his bitter campaign against Lauren had failed so spectacularly. His departure had lifted a weight Daniel hadn't fully acknowledged carrying. Emma supervised the move with military precision, ensuring her elephant books went to the new room first, that her stuffed animals were arranged on the window seat in the exact right order. She'd picked a purple accent wall that Lauren had helped her paint, complete with hand-stenciled stars that glowed in the dark. This is the best room ever, Emma announced, spinning in circles until she got dizzy. Better than my old room, better than Mia's room, better than anywhere. I'm glad you like it, sweetheart. Daniel set down the last box of her toys, his back aching from furniture hauling. I love it, and I love our new house, and I love that Lauren lives here now. She stopped spinning to look at him seriously. Are you happy, Daddy? Incredibly happy. Good. Me too. She hugged him quickly, then darted off to inspect Lauren's office setup for the 100th time. That night, after Emma was asleep in her new purple room and the boxes were mostly unpacked, Daniel and Lauren collapsed onto their new couch, a compromise between his preference for leather and hers for soft fabric that had resulted in something both could live with. We did it, Lauren said, her head on his shoulder. We actually did it. Having second thoughts? Not even a little. You? None. Daniel kissed the top of her head. This feels right, Lauren. Like we've been building toward this since that rainy night in your house. The night you refused to sleep on the sofa. The night everything changed. He shifted to look at her properly. I meant what I said then, about not wanting to be careful anymore, about choosing to live instead of just survive. I know. And I meant what I said about being willing to try, even though I was terrified. Lauren traced patterns on his chest absently. We've come a long way from that night. Office investigations, family drama, figuring out how to be a blended family before we even had a name for what we were doing. And we're still here, still choosing this, still choosing each other. She tilted her head up to kiss him, slow and thorough. Every day, Daniel. I choose this every day. The months that followed were an exercise in adjustment and compromise, in learning how three people with different rhythms and needs could create something functional and beautiful. Lauren's work schedule still demanded late nights sometimes, but she learned to carve out sacred family time, Sunday morning pancakes, Wednesday movie nights, Emma's swimming lessons where she'd cheer from the sidelines with embarrassing enthusiasm. Daniel learned to loosen his iron grip on schedules, to accept that spontaneity wouldn't destroy their stability, that sometimes the best moments came from unplanned detours and flexible timelines. Emma bloomed with the additional attention and stability, her confidence growing as she realized Lauren wasn't going anywhere, that this new configuration was permanent. She started calling Lauren by name instead of Daddy's friend, a small shift that felt monumentally significant. The proposal, when it finally came, was nothing like Daniel had imagined. He'd planned something elaborate, dinner at a nice restaurant, maybe a weekend trip, certainly not a random Tuesday evening in November with Emma helping him cook dinner while Lauren was stuck in traffic. But Emma, with the lack of filter that made 4-year-olds terrifying and wonderful, forced his hand. When are you going to marry Lauren? She asked, dumping pasta into boiling water with Daniel's supervision. We've talked about it, Em, remember? We said maybe sometime in the future. But when? Mia's mom is getting married at Christmas, and Mia gets to be a flower girl and wear a fancy dress. Can I be a flower girl at your wedding? That's something Lauren and I would need to discuss. You should ask her tonight. She likes Tuesdays because they're not as stressful as Mondays. Daniel laughed despite himself. Who told you that? Lauren did. We talk about lots of things. Emma stirred the pasta with intense concentration. She said she'd say yes if you asked, but you have to actually ask, Daddy. That's how proposals work. When did you two discuss this? Last week when we made friendship bracelets. She said she loves us and wants to be a real family, but she's waiting for you to be ready. Emma looked up at him with those knowing eyes. Are you ready yet? The question hit him square in the chest. Was he ready? He'd bought the ring 3 weeks ago, had been carrying it around in his laptop bag like a talisman, waiting for the perfect moment. But maybe Emma was right. Maybe there was no perfect moment, only the moment you chose to make perfect. Yeah, he said slowly. Yeah, I think I am ready. Good, because she's home. Sure enough, Daniel heard Lauren's key in the lock, her familiar greeting as she dropped her bag and kicked off her shoes. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair escaping from its bun, looking exhausted and beautiful. Something smells amazing. Please tell me that's the carbonara recipe because I've been dreaming about it all day. She kissed Emma's head, then Daniel's lips in easy domesticity. How were your days? Good. I got a gold star in reading and we're making your favorite pasta and Daddy has something important to ask you. Emma delivered this last part with absolute seriousness. Lauren's eyes went wide, darting to Daniel. Emma, it's okay, Daniel said, turning off the stove and wiping his hands on a towel. His heart was hammering, but Emma's certainty had given him courage. She's right. I do have something to ask you. He crossed to his laptop bag, extracting the small velvet box he'd been carrying for weeks. When he turned back, Lauren had one hand over her mouth, eyes already shimmering with tears. Daniel, let me do this properly, he interrupted gently, then dropped to one knee right there in their kitchen, with pasta boiling on the stove and Emma watching with barely contained excitement. Lauren Hayes, you've made me believe in second chances and messy, complicated, beautiful love. You've shown my daughter what it means to be strong and smart and unapologetically yourself. You've proven that choosing each other every day is more powerful than any grand gesture. He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Will you marry me? Will you choose this? Choose us. Not just for today, but for all the days ahead? Lauren was crying openly now, nodding before she could get words out. Yes. God, yes. Of course, yes. Emma cheered so loudly that the neighbors probably heard, launching herself at Lauren in a tackle hug that nearly knocked her over. Daniel stood, slipping the ring onto Lauren's finger with hands that shook slightly, and then all three of them were hugging and crying and laughing in their small kitchen while the pasta threatened to boil over. Can I be a flower girl? Emma asked, pulling back to look at them with shining eyes. You can be whatever you want, Lauren said, kneeling down to Emma's level. This is your family too, Emma. You get a say in everything. I want to be a flower girl, and I want to wear purple, and I want to help pick the cake because cake is very important. Emma ticked off her requirements on small fingers. And the wedding has to have elephants somehow. Maybe elephant decorations? Elephant decorations, Daniel agreed solemnly. Absolutely non-negotiable. This is going to be the best wedding ever, Emma declared with absolute certainty. And somehow, despite all the challenges still ahead, the actual wedding planning, the legal complexities of adoption that Lauren wanted to pursue, the inevitable bumps of merged lives. Daniel believed her. Because they'd already survived the hardest parts. They'd chosen honesty over hiding, fought for each other through gossip and doubt, built something real from a single rainy night and a decision not to play it safe. The wedding happened 6 months later on a bright March afternoon in a small garden venue that Emma had insisted on because it had a fountain shaped like an elephant. It was intimate, just close friends, A few coworkers who'd become genuine allies, Mrs. Patterson in the front row dabbing her eyes, even Lauren's parents who'd slowly come around to accepting their daughter's choices. Emma stole the show in her purple flower girl dress, taking her job so seriously that she walked down the aisle with military precision, dropping petals in perfectly spaced intervals. When Daniel and Lauren exchanged vows, promises written themselves, specific and honest and full of the hard-won wisdom of people who'd earned their happy ending, Emma stood between them, holding both their hands. "I promise to love you even when you're cranky before coffee," Lauren said, her voice steady despite the tears. "To support your dreams even when they scare me. To show up for Emma's recitals and school plays and all the moments that matter. To choose this family, this life, every single day." "I promise to give you space to be brilliant," Daniel responded. "To never ask you to choose between your career and us because you shouldn't have to. To load the dishwasher the way you like, even though I think my way is more efficient. To be brave enough to keep choosing love over fear, always." They sealed it with a kiss while Emma made exaggerated gagging noises that made everyone laugh, and then they were married, this strange, beautiful family that had been forged in storm and gossip, and the brave decision to stop hiding from life. At the reception, Marcus cornered Daniel at the bar. "You did good, man," he said, raising his glass. "From that scared guy in the parking garage to this, it's been quite a journey. Couldn't have done it without the kick in the pants from people like you. Nah, you did the hard work, you and Lauren both." Marcus took a sip of his drink. "For what it's worth, I never doubted you two would make it. Anyone who fights that hard for each other, that's built to last." Daniel watched Lauren across the room, dancing with Emma to a song that was definitely too slow for Emma's enthusiastic interpretation. His wife, his family, his life that he'd almost been too afraid to reach for. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think you're right." That night, after Emma was tucked in bed at Mrs. Patterson's house, a special sleepover so the newlyweds could have their wedding night alone, Daniel and Lauren returned to their home. Not the hotel suite they'd booked, not some romantic getaway, but the bungalow they'd made into something worth protecting. "I can't believe we pulled off elephant-themed wedding decorations," Lauren said, kicking off her heels with a sigh of relief. "Your daughter is very persuasive." "Our daughter," Daniel corrected gently. "The adoption papers go through next month, remember?" Lauren's eyes went bright with fresh tears. Happy ones this time. "Our daughter. God, I'm going to be someone's mother. That's terrifying." "You've been mothering her for almost a year now. This just makes it official." "I know, but still, what if I'm terrible at it? What if I mess her up with my workaholic tendencies and inability to cook anything that doesn't come with instructions?" Daniel pulled her close, swaying slightly like they were still on the dance floor. "You're not going to mess her up. You're going to show her that women can be brilliant and ambitious and loving all at once. That success doesn't mean sacrificing family, and family doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. You have entirely too much faith in me, Daniel Carter." Daniel Hayes Carter. Now, we hyphenated, remember? Right. That's going to take some getting used to. But she was smiling, that private, genuine smile he'd fallen in love with. "You know what I realized today, during the ceremony?" "What?" "That night in the storm, when you said you wouldn't sleep on the sofa, that was the moment everything changed. Not because of what happened after, but because you were brave enough to say what you wanted, to stop hiding behind safety and control, and just reach for something real. Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Lauren corrected. "The best decision was showing up every day after that. Choosing this even when it was hard. Fighting for us when it would have been easier to walk away." Daniel thought about all the moments that had led here. The gossip and doubt. The HR investigations. The careful choreography of blending lives. The Sunday pancakes and Wednesday movies. Emma's purple room and Lauren's coffee mugs everywhere. The 1,000 small compromises that had built something stronger than either of them could have created alone. "You know what scared me most?" he said quietly. "Not the office politics or the public scrutiny. It was the idea that I might have let fear win. That I might have driven away that night, gone back to my safe, controlled life, and never known what we could have built together." "But you didn't drive away." "No, I stayed. and you invited me in, and Emma accepted you. And somehow, against all odds and office gossip and our own doubts, we made this work. Lauren kissed him then, slow and deep, tasting of champagne and promise. So here's to staying, she whispered against his lips, to choosing each other over safe, to building a life that's messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. To no more sofas, Daniel added, making her laugh. To no more running, she agreed. They stood in their living room, their home, their life, their hard-won sanctuary, and held each other as Portland rain began to patter against the windows. Another storm, but this time they were inside together, safe and chosen, and exactly where they belonged. Outside, the city continued its relentless rhythm. Inside, three people who'd been brave enough to reach across professional boundaries and personal fears had built something that would last. Not because it was easy, but because they'd chosen it every single day, through gossip and doubt, through fear and growth, through all the moments that mattered. Daniel Carter, who'd learned to live carefully, had finally learned to live fully. Lauren Hayes, who'd built her identity on professional success, had discovered that love didn't diminish her. It multiplied her strength. And Emma, wise beyond her 4 years, had gained a family that would show her what it meant to be brave. The sofa sat empty in the guest room, a reminder of the night everything changed. But they'd never need it again, because from that first storm until this one, through every challenge and choice, they'd proven one simple truth. When you stop hiding from life, when you choose love over fear and presence over perfection, you build something strong enough to weather any storm. And they had. Together.